Hello folks and welcome to our game once again. Myself, Shane Stapleton, and of course Michael Verney is here, the Robin to my Batman. How are things, Michael?
Like deja vu. Monday morning, Thursday afternoon, we're here.
Yeah, we're here like a bad old smell. We've so much to talk about. We're going to have guests on the show. Mark Bergin of 𝘱𝘴𝘴𝘰𝘮, Donal Burke of Na Fianna. They're going to come on the show, talk all things GA. But of course, there's only one place to start, Michael, and that is what was revealed, I suppose, yesterday evening. Do you want to start us off on this one?
Oh, the old player charter.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when I saw it at first. Anyway, I'll just kind of fly through a few bits that are in it because just in case anybody hasn't seen it. But I'd say chances are you're probably living on another planet. I'd say if you haven't seen it. So basically, it's a players charter that players had to sign up to before basically being part of a panel for 2024. So number one on it was anyone planning trips to Australia, America and Canada, etc. for the summer can't be part of the senior panel for 24. No holidays during championship, June to October, unless approved by management and the leadership group. Unapproved holidays means suspension or removal from panel. No drinking during championship, June to October, unless approved by management and leadership group. Unapproved drinking means suspension or removal from panel. Like, there's loads of bits and pieces. I won't go down to it all. One that really, I have to say, tickled my fancy was the no other sporting commitments past June: soccer, golf, rugby, athletics, etc. And the other one probably that was of real interest was commitment by team to lead the team fundraising activity 15k and to players training fund thereafter. I don't know what genius decided to put pen to paper on this, but the optics of it are absolutely horrible. Like, where do you start? What was your first thoughts even when you saw it? Like, I know there's been a few flying around in recent years, but this one probably takes the biscuit. And just to confirm for all people that are asking, no, this is not a spoof. This is reality.
Across the board, like, Joe, the most unusual thing I find about it is that it was ever committed to paper. So it's fair enough. I think every team, and like from a management point of view, you do need guidelines in the sense, but the guidelines come back to, lads, be smart here. So throughout the run of, and I'll just use an example of when things went well with Coola, and maybe you can bring it back to then with Burr back in the glory days as well. There was no such thing ever as a drinking ban, but there was a thing of be smart. But then, of course, it comes back to your culture. Is the culture of your team to be smart? And it comes back to the holidays as well. I think players do need to take it upon themselves to realise, okay, let's say, for example, your championship starts mid to late July. Okay, well, by the start of July, you should have planned to have taken any holidays. If you're going to commit 8 or 9 months, because a lot of teams are doing pre-season and gym for a couple of months before the start of the year, and maybe they'll hit the pitch, right? Every team's different, but broadly speaking, you do that. And you've got championship that will probably go on till late September, if not October. So if you're going to put that much in, and so many people are going to fundraise, train, organize everything for your club as a player, you should at least be smart enough around when you organize holidays, around saying I'm not going to electric picnic, around saying I'm not going to the ploughing championship if you're from a different part of the country. So I don't think this should ever need to be committed to paper, because it will get leaked out, as it has been, and has been in the past as well from other teams.
Is the ploughing championship a big session? Is the ploughing championship a big session? No, that takes place.
I know.
You've never been. It takes place during the day and you can be back for training, no problem.
I have been. I went during my leaving cert. I wasn't a drinker at the time, but but I know of a team. Like, a friend of mine was coaching a team last year, and 6 players missed training in the lead up to championship because of the ploughing championships. So I'm not saying it's the end of the world, but I'm just saying if you're on a team that wants to go somewhere, you have to be smart, and there can't be a culture of, sure, we'll all go on holidays during championship. And I did that as a player in the past. There was times when I prioritized other stuff, but when the team is going in a serious direction, that stuff doesn't happen. And that has to come down to the culture of the dressing room. And this must be born of frustration. Everyone knows the club that's involved, right? Or certainly everyone seems to know the club involved. But this must be born of frustration from people who are looking at the players, or a certain amount of the players, even in the dressing room, would also be frustrated what's going on, because the culture clearly isn't right there.
Yeah, I think it is definitely born of frustration, because I think there was a bit of a mass exodus of guys in June and July last year, by all accounts, when there was nothing going on. And that's probably a debate around the split season as well, about like that a lot of guys do go away around those times. But basically, the document is basically saying no J1s allowed. It's kind of mad. You were saying there about when you were on the run with Kula. Like, I remember, and this happened every time Burke got to an All-Ireland Club semi-final. Padjo Whelan, when he was manager, like, and he said it. He has actually said this, that we go on a weekend boozing 3 or 4 weeks beforehand as a bonding session. That's what he used to say back in the day. That was part of the bonding session. I'm wondering, Mark, have you ever signed up to a player charter like this? Delighted to be joined by Mark Bergin from O'Loughlin's.
Well, lads, how are you? Thanks for. No, I can safely say I never saw on those contracts live anyway. Look, I thought it was a joke at first, to be honest, when I saw it late last night. It was brought into O'Loughlin's, so I'd be getting Brian Hogan to ring my wife to tell her that we're not going on holiday next summer.
Yeah, it's a mad one, isn't it? Like, and as Shane was saying there before you jumped on, like, some of the stuff that's in it is actually somewhat reasonable and actually discussed, but it never would be committed to paper. It would just be sensible when you're booking, lads. You can book a holiday from this time to this time, but not thereafter. And it's basically the same with having a few scoops as well. We might go on a weekend away, this weekend. Just be clever about it between now and then. You know what I mean?
Ah, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's common sense as well, and I suppose it's players taking ownership too. Like, in fairness, I've never been part of a panel where there was drinking ban or told you're not allowed to drink, lads. Players just knew, and I know, Shane, you were mentioning that there with Kula. Like, you just had a bit of cop on to know that, right, we have a championship match next weekend. We're not going to go out tonight or whatever it is. Like, again, playing other sports, I don't mind getting out for a round of golf either myself, like, just to switch off and to try something different. But as I said, look, thankfully, I haven't been part of a panel where those guidelines or rules were put on paper anyhow. But look, I don't know, hopefully it'll be rectified in the coming days.
Well, look, we wanted to talk about the brilliant performance that you had at the weekend. 17 points to 12 winners over 𝘱𝘁𝘗. Like, really, really impressive. And the first thing I want to put you, Mark, is that this man here, Michael Verney, he predicted that you'd win Leinster, but when it came up to the individual games, he said you'd lose to Mount Leinster and he said you'd lose to 𝘱𝘁. So you rambled down the throat.
I hope he's Na Fianna to win on Saturday.
I also said they'd win Kilkenny now, to be fair, but I thought you were susceptible going down to Mount Leinster. I won't lie, and I had a bit of Offaly allegiance in my eyes probably last Saturday as well. But that was a great performance, Mark. Like, geez, just from the word go, you hit the ground running.
Yeah, we did, Michael. It was the same as well in against Mount Leinster Rangers 2 weeks ago. I think the start was absolutely crucial. And you're right. Look, there's no point in saying otherwise. I was worried enough about the Mount Leinster game because they're obviously a serious team coming down from that high, beating Ballyhale, going for 6 in a row. Celebrations, as you'd imagine, they were great. Went on for a few days, but in fairness to Hoagie, he got us back training on the Wednesday night, and it was the best thing, is the best move that he made. We had a chat, we looked at it and said, look, this is an opportunity now. Beating Ballyhale, while it's great, you have to view it. We played Kula, Shane, in 2016, and we're absolutely blown off the park. And, I personally thought that I might never get a chance to play in a Leinster campaign again. So you have to use it as a springboard. There's no point in winning Kilkenny and then sitting back and saying, great. You look at Ballyhale, like, they've been on the road for so long. Yes, they're coming up with Leinster Club Championships, All Ireland's. Like, you have to view it as an opportunity, and we targeted both starts in both the games. To be honest, like do any team, and we got a great start. But the second half, we died out. It's something that we're going to have to look at this week. We can't let that happen in the biggest day of all, Leinster Club final here in Croke Park.
And just in terms of, like, your own career, like, this isn't your first season, isn't going to be your first Leinster final. You won one back in, I think it was 2011 against Oulart. Are you the only? Sorry?
It was played in 2011 because of the snow that year, actually. It was played in the first week in January. We played a very fancied Oulart team in Dr. Cullen Park. We came out with a 2 or 3 point lead or win in the end. We went on then, we played Lougheed in the semi-final. And we lost the final to Clarenbridge on Patrick's Day. March 2011. So yeah, look, I've been there. Stephen Murphy would be the same. The two of us, I think, were playing. Tony Forrest, the cornerback, he was on the panel. Paddy Butler, Jack Nolan. We had a few lads on the panel. So again, we had more lads then in 2016. Paddy Deegan, Hugh Lawler, Paddy Butler, all those boys were playing then. So we have that bit of experience, I suppose, in terms of the Leinster Championship. But yeah, I've been on the road a while, all right, Shane. But look, I'm absolutely loving it. It's great. It has a kind of a pre-season feel to it. You're going out to John's Park to training, but I tell you, the prize is absolutely huge. So can't wait now for Saturday.
And in terms of those experiences you've had before, for the lads who haven't been there, is there anything you feel like you've needed to get across to them to let them know, look, you don't know when these chances will come around again?
Absolutely, definitely. The Wednesday night after the Mount Leinster or the Ballyhale game, leading into the Mount Leinster game, we definitely spoke as a group and said, look, there's an opportunity here. It can't be sniffed at. Lads who were 26 at the moment, 27, if we had to wait another 7 years to win the Kenny Championship, they'd be probably the same age as myself then at that stage, coming towards their end of their career. There's just no guarantees, particularly in Kilkenny. It's such a well tightly contested championship, and look, you saw those during the year. Mullinvat, we scraped through down Thomastown by 2 or 3 points. Bennettsbridge had us there as well. Ballyhale, it took us to the 63rd minute. These opportunities certainly don't come around. If we have to wait another 7 years to win the Kenny Championship, an awful lot of lads who are playing on Saturday next won't be playing.
Croke Park is behind you there, Mark. I presume that's somewhere you'd love to right a few wrongs. I'm even thinking about a college's final back in the day as well, and I know that's nearly half a lifetime ago, but I presume it's somewhere you'd love to win a big final.
Absolutely, Michael. Yeah, 2007, I think it was, 2006. Yeah, we got beaten by Donal in a school's final. Had the opportunity to level the game, all right, but unfortunately hit the post. But that's sport. Yeah, it's a special place. There's no point in saying otherwise. Had some good days. Panel with Kilkenny in 2012, and that we beat Galway in an All Ireland. It's a special place when you win. It can be a very different place when you lose. So look, hopefully things go right for us on Saturday, but it's going to be a massive test.
Just on the county final, Mark, there was a picture going around after, one of the best pictures I've seen in a long time. It's you and Brian Skehan jumping in tandem. I saw you running towards the stand, giving it the big one, giving it the Brendan Bugler fist bump, and then one of the great photographers, how they managed to do it, they got you, the two of you both in tandem, jumping in the air at the exact same time. Can you just talk me through? Yeah, I'd say it could be off the bone. I'd say. Could you just talk me through this, like a brilliant picture? Can you just talk me through the emotion in the seconds and minutes after winning the county final?
I was fortunate enough, that was my third Kilkenny Championship, and I can honestly say that one, while the other two were special, that one was just different about it. Yeah, extremely emotional. Maybe it's because I'm that little bit older. I was fortunate enough the boys named me as captain. It's been a great year for me personally as well. Birth of my daughter, and just everything was kind of running into one there. Yeah, Brian just decided to follow me. I don't know what to do there, but yeah, look, it's a great picture. And some of the pictures that were going around after the game, they really are special. I'm looking forward to Christmas now and sitting down properly and going through them. But hopefully we might get a few more pictures before the year's out.
Yeah, Mark, can you explain, like, when you go on a run in Leinster or through the All Ireland series and all that kind of stuff, like it just feels a little bit different as a group, that you're kind of on a journey. I don't know, is it something that can be explained? But there's certainly that feeling when you're in it.
Yeah, it is different, Shane. It is different. Like, getting up on a bus, even we found it strange to go to Carlow for the Mount Leinster game. There is a buzz, there is an excitement. You're going off with lads that you played with, lads that you grew up with. It doesn't happen too often, as I said, particularly the journeys back then to the club. I remember 2010 and 2016 when we went on a bit of a run. They are special times. There are probably times that in a few years' time that we're going to have a pint at Christmas time sometime, and just to talk about those memories that were created. They are special. It's very hard to pinpoint it. But yourself, it's just, there is something special, something different about winning with your club, no matter what age you are. Like, there's a great balance in our team as well. There's the older lads and there's the young lads there as well, and they're keeping us going. they're bringing a completely different dimension to the panel and to the crack in the panel too. And it's just a great place to be. And we can't wait for Saturday. Bus loads going up from O'Loughlin's. It's just brilliant, and we're living our dream now, to be honest.
Did you get a chance? I know Donal Burke is at the Leinster GA launch with you there, and he hasn't played so far this year. Have you tried to wrangle any information out of him?
I know he's keeping his card close to his chest here, Shane. So, look, super player too. I don't know what the story is there. Maybe you might have
we'll ask him. All right.
Yeah.
The likes of just Conor Heary's had some season. Like previously, I can only remember seeing him in the backs. Is he one of these lads now who might catch the eye of Derek Lyng?
I think he definitely deserves a go in the forwards. He played cornerback. He's part of the extended panel this year. He played cornerback in the league game, I think, against Tipperary early on in the league, and I'm not quite sure whether things worked out for him. Then he had fierce Achilles problems.
I think I might have lost your audio there, Mark. I might just kick you out and back in, and hopefully you'll be able to hear you then. We just log back in there in a second. Joe Butler says, "Well done, Mark. A great win in Glenisco O'Connor Park. So proud of you all. You've given us great satisfaction. It was a cold day in Tullamore on Saturday." Yeah, sorry, Michael. I think we just lost Mark's audio there, so hopefully he'll click back in there in a second. But yeah, Conor Heary, he's had some season, and he was brilliant again the other day.
Yeah, he wasn't able to tug out for the All-Ireland final because he two Achilles. I think he had 2 operations on his Achilles. He had an awful lot of trouble with it. I tell you, there's a lot of things that impress me about him. The physical size of him, how he's able to get clean possession, how he's able to carry ball, how he seems to always give the right pass, even for Owen Wall's goal chance. Mark, you were probably just cut off there mid-sentence, I'd say. But Conor has been outstanding in the last couple of games. I'd be the same as Shane. I would have just seen him as a defender. He was brilliant. Was he wing back in the county final a couple of years ago? He kept one of the Ballyhale lads quiet, but he kind of really has it all as a forward. He's strong, he's fast, he's athletic, he's able to win ball, he's clever on the ball, and he was outstanding for you at the weekend.
He was, yeah. Look, he's a good hurler, Mike. So he
I think we've lost the audio again there. Maybe you could ask John there to log in on a different device. It's just I'm not sure what's going on with it at the moment. That's an awful shame because we were getting into it. Let's talk a little bit about the match, and hopefully Mark will be able to come back on. But like the first half, I thought they were brilliant. 10 points to 3 ahead, and I think what summed it up more than anything was it was 6 points to 1 from open play. So there was no doubt who was on top in sort of general play.
Yeah, Shane, it could have been 15 points up at half-time. O'Loughlin's did all the hurling. Had a hell of a lot of wides in the first half as well. I'd say Brian Hogan would have been disappointed in a way going in at half-time because they did leave, I know it was 7 and it looked like a big gap going in at half-time, and Adam Streedy missed a free to mean that it could have been 6 at half-time. But you would have been thinking like there should be 4 or 5 goals between these two teams at half-time because O'Loughlin's did all the hurling. Jesus, they hunted like in packs all over the pitch. They forced KK to deliver ball into the forward line that was just not good enough for what was in there, and it wasn't advantageous for a forward. It was bad ball going in. They forced them to spill. A lot of the time they forced KK to even carry the ball into bodies and overturn them there. It was a brilliant first half of hurling. Now, I know I think you were tweeting it as well. It didn't look like there was going to be any sort of a revival in the second half. It looked like there was really only one team in it. But fair play to KK. They made it very competitive. But very like the Mount Leinster game. O'Loughlin sensed that bit of danger, bit of cuteness, won a free here and there, were able to settle things down. They looked in a bit of trouble as they did against Mount Leinster, but they were able to kind of weather that storm. I think it was 4 was the lowest the margin was against Mount Leinster. I think it was 2 the other day, but they never really looked like losing the game. And when they needed to, they were able to tag on a couple of scores. And I mentioned Conor Heary there. He had a huge display. Thought Owen Wall was really lively up front, flashed over that goal. They looked very disappointed with it as well, because I'd say he was sure it was in the back of the net. I thought Jack Nolan was brilliant. The two wing backs are outstanding. Obviously the three county boys in defence as well were brilliant. And just on that, like we talked about the other day about the tallies they've conceded: 12 points the last day, 13 points against Mount Leinster, 19 against Ballyhale, which is good. And Bennett's Bridge must have been in around the 20 mark, but no goals conceded in the last 4 games, while they have scored, what did they score? 2 against Mount Leinster, none the last day. Like, Mark, just if you're able to hear us there now, you mark the boys in defence a lot of the time. Like, that is a fairly mean defence that you have. Very, very, very difficult to break down, and you're conceding very, very low tallies in each game now.
No, I'm not quite sure if Mark can hear us just yet. One of those days you go live and you try and work with phones and stuff like that. It's not always going to work out. We have a comment in saying that Conor Heary was centre forward for Kilkenny in the minor semi-final in 2017 against Galway. The Galway team that had Darren Morrissey and Jack Canning has experience in the forwards. Conceded 22 points against the Bridge is what Joe Butler is adding in there. Joe always trying to play things down for his own last game.
I tell you what, he can play things down no more anyway. At this stage, they're in with a great shout at Leinster Glory on Saturday, and even looking further afield, if they do get out of Leinster, they're going to be a tough enough for anybody to crack. And
of course, if you look at how much they conceded, it was just 5 points from play. Charlie Mitchell got 3 of those, James Gorman got 1, Jack Screeney got another. And like, as the game went on, it just felt like Kilcormac, whether it was their own panic or just feeling like they were being tackled because the tackling was so good, they ended up getting blocked down, hitting 50-50 in between Hugh Lawler and Paddy Deegan and so on. We were just talking about defence that you have, Mark. It must be no crack coming up against Mikey Butler, Paddy Deegan and Hugh Lawler in training.
Yeah, they're absolutely serious. The 3 boys there. Look, it's super. It's super to have them, to be honest. Like you're saying, they're great lads. 2-time All-Stars, Mikey and Hugh. You know, Paddy's just Mr. Consistent, both with Kilkenny and Ballyhale, Kilkenny and O'Loughlin's, and you know, he's going very, very well. Yeah, look, our backs have been very good so far this year. Long may that last. There's a good unity there, backbone obviously by the 3 lads.
We were asking a question the other day to, I think, who were we asking? Aaron Gillan. And he was saying that the most skillful player, or one of the most skillful players, of course, was Cathal O'Neill. He said he has as good a skills as Cian Lynch. We're just wondering, like, of the players you've played with, and you've been involved in Kilkenny panels and so on, who are some of the most skillful players that you've played with?
Straight away, TJ Reid has to be up there. He's just phenomenal. His aerial ability alone, you kind of, you know, you see him in training, and some of the things that he does is just, it's crazy, you know. I remember a particular session in with Kilkenny, and nearly the session stopped, the game stopped, and said, you know, how in the name of God did you actually do that? But that's just him, you know. That's just him. He's just absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, look, I was delighted to be there to witness it, to be honest. But TJ has to be up there. It's just top class, you know, one of the best ever.
Who's the toughest player you ever were marked by in training in Kilkenny?
JJ Delaney, Tommy Walsh, either one of those, whichever you fancy, to be honest, because both of them would cut you in half, you know, in a good way, absolutely in a good way now, and I mean that in the best of the respect to them both. Top class hurlers, like, you know, and you know that if things are going well and you're scoring a point or 2 off of them lads, you're hurling very, very well, and them days were fairly rare now, to be honest.
What's it like when you're coming up against those boys in training? Like you're trying to make a starting berth for yourself, and you're coming up against these boys, and by all accounts, they never took it handy in training. If anything, training was like, they'd kill you in training, by all accounts. Didn't Tommy or Larkin, someone kick someone in the head or something in one of the trainings to take one time? Yeah. What was that like?
It's crazy. It was serious. It was so good, like, and I think you really saw the benefit when you went back with the club. You really saw that how sharp you were, and I suppose lifting the standards again within the club. And that's what I got definitely from being in with Kilkenny, to be surrounded by those boys and seeing what they do to make them so successful, and to keep at the top was absolutely huge. But yeah, like, it was crazy, to be honest with you, Michael. The standards were so high. There wasn't room to breathe nearly in training, you know. But there were great days, great times and memories to have forever.
Who was the biggest sneer on the panel?
On the O'Loughlin's or the Kilkenny?
No, on the Kilkenny. It's easier for you to talk about Kilkenny here. Like, who was the
because you put me in the spot now. I'm trying to think back. Owen Larkin was a gas character now, in fairness. You know,
he'd have great time for the O'Loughlin's boys.
He would, Michael, yeah. You being sarcastic there?
Well, I
get on fierce well with him. Like, you know, he's a sound lad. Right? There's no problem whatsoever. Paul Murphy be up for a bit of crack too, particularly after the games. But no, it was a great environment to be around. You know, it really was. But look, as I said, when it was business, it was business. When the training started, they were different people. Like, you know, but once it was over. Great team spirit there that Brian Cody used to always go on about how important it was, that spirit, and that was so evident to see down through the years, you know.
And actually,
you talk about 𝘧𝘳𝘁𝘲, and I have to come in on this because I thought you might say this, man. There's a great story of when Kilkenny played Cork in a league game, and there was a bit of a row or something like that anyway, and all that was remembered from the row, nobody remembers who hit who or what happened. All that's remembered is Tommy Walsh shouting at 𝘱𝘳𝘁𝘲, "That is an awful haircut." That's all he said, and the boys laughed the whole way back to Kilkenny, I'm told.
How did I forget about Tommy Walsh? Actually, to be honest, you know, he was the older statesman within the panel, but he was up for any crack, no matter who you were. And I remember he made the dressing room so much more comfortable, particularly for younger lads like myself going into training. You know, he's an absolute character. He still texts you after matches. You know, I bumped into him in the petrol station there. He was after coming back from a junior league game or a junior championship game, and he was devastated. I said, "Well, what's wrong with you?" He goes, "I had a woeful wide coming towards the game. I caught the ball. It was unbelievable. It turned to me left, and I drove it away." He said, "I'm absolutely gutted. So I'm going in now to buy myself an ice cream." He was gassed. He's just a big child, like, you know.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Well, look, Mark, just all we say is best of luck heading into the weekend. Hopefully it's a cracker of a match. We're really looking forward to it. And yeah, thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers, lad. Thanks a million.
Cheers, Mark.
Great stuff to have Mark on. So again, really, really impressive. They're like, what really impresses me most about them is just their ability to win dirty ball and breaks. Like, people, I suppose, often think that, you know, some of this can be just by coincidence that you have the right lads in the right place at the right time. But I think it's a culture thing. Again, it comes back to, like, lads are always switched on, that when the ball travels into a certain area, they kind of had that sixth sense to know there's only a couple of places this ball could potentially break where I could get it. Like, and I just think it's one of the reasons that Kilkenny teams have remained so competitive over the years. Just that whole thing and that hunger to get on that breaking ball.
Just on that point, like, and it's funny because the ball never looked like it was going to end up in the position that it did. But do you remember that time a ball was kind of pulled across about 40 yards across the field, and Paddy Butler was just standing there by himself and puts it over the bar kind of in space? I thought they were particularly dialed in the first half, and as I said, that game probably should have been out of sight at half time. From their own point of view, it's probably no harm that they were in another battle. I thought it was interesting as well to see them all doing running on the pitch after, and it was the same against Mount Leinster Rangers. Not just the 5 or 6 lads that didn't play. Everybody was doing runs. Like, they weren't unbelievable. They were 60 or 70%, but they were doing those runs to make sure that they were ready for the Na Fianna boys on Saturday. And delighted to be joined by Donal Burke from Na Fianna. Donal, how are you?
How's things, lads? How are you getting on?
We're wondering, so the O'Loughlin's lads were doing runs after their match the other day. Are you back doing runs, or how far are you away after your injury?
Yeah, back doing runs, yeah, flying it.
Yeah, are you that far? We have to ask you, are you that far away from back playing? What about the Leinster final this weekend?
No, it's a bit of a quick turnaround now for me, unfortunately. Hopefully back training in the next couple of weeks, and probably take it from there then.
Yeah, like, how badly did you do the injury? It happened against Clare in the All-Ireland quarter final, didn't it?
It was bad enough now. Tore the hamstring tendon off the bone, so very sore one, yeah. So it takes a bit of time to come back from.
Yeah.
Did you know at the time, Donal, that it was bad? Did you know? Do you know? I thankfully, touch wood, I've never had that like that myself. But do you know at the time, it's not good?
It was sore enough. To be honest, I didn't think it'd be as bad as it was. I just thought it'd be like a normal in 3 weeks. So yeah, the physio scan then after the game. People gave me the bad news the day after.
You had to go abroad, did you? Did you get it operated on fairly quickly, or within a couple of weeks you went over to England or something, did you?
Surgery done, yeah. So yeah, thankfully it was all probably a quick enough process. So yeah, just nearly there now, trying to, I suppose, at the last stage.
Just like, can you talk to us a little bit about your, I suppose, career path with Dublin? Like, so you would have been known underage coming through and all that, and you had a year or two in Dublin, and then did you head away for a year or so just to do something different?
Yeah, I suppose hurling would have been my number one priority since maybe 15 or 16. So I hit about 21, I suppose. I just needed a bit of a break just to kind of reset. Then when I came back, sure, COVID hit and everything kind of locked down. So I'm a bit of a more of a break than I signed up for. But yeah, then I suppose kind of said I'd give it a rattle then for the next couple of years, see where I get, and sure, I'm still here, hopefully, thankfully.
And was it just, did you head away for a year, or was it just like a summer in America, or what did you do?
I actually played the league, and then I stepped back, and then I went away then in the summer.
Okay, was it just America? Did you hurl over there, or?
Hurled over there, yeah, so it kept me.
Okay. Good crack over there now. Having played over there myself, I can confirm there's no players' charters about not drinking over there.
That's a different contract now over there.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your influences in terms of, like, obviously I know a lot, like, there's great work in Na Fianna and you've won a huge amount of, I suppose, underage titles. People were expecting you to come. But can you talk to us about Na Fianna as a club and its kind of development over recent years?
Yeah, I suppose there's been a lot of work gone in the last 20 years. And we've been very lucky. Maybe we got a good crop, maybe 5 years or so, from just a lot of underage titles that we were able to win. And I suppose the biggest challenge is kind of putting that into senior. Jump is so big physically. It took a while to get to that level, and we were able to get out this year. I suppose it was huge just for the work put in by coaches and stuff the last 15, 20 years. It was bigger for them, I suppose, than us. So yeah, it was special.
Yeah, because I mean, 2 years ago it looked like he had that final one against Crokes. How devastating was that at the time? Because you were something like, was it 7 points ahead late on, and Ronan Hayes went to town and they ended up winning after extra time. But like, how painful was that on the day?
Yeah, it was a tough defeat to take. Probably up there at the toughest. But look, it was probably a bit of inexperience at the time. We didn't expect to be in that position, I'd say, before the game. So these are, I suppose, the learns you kind of have to take. And I suppose if you look at this year, the final, we didn't really give any chance at all. So it's probably a sign of how far we've come and the learns we've taken over the last couple of years.
Yeah. What was it like watching on for that game? I'm sure you were very frustrated that you couldn't be out there.
I wasn't too bad. It was a lot more nerve-wracking now than playing. So yeah, first half was good, and I suppose we still had that. So it was a couple of years ago. You still have that kind of feeling at half time. It's not won yet. Like, so the last 10 minutes, I suppose, they kind of started hitting home that we probably win this here. So yeah, it was a good special few days.
Yeah. Would you have many? Is there a tradition of hurling in your family, like father, uncles, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, my uncles used to play for Offaly. My dad, Ryan, a few All-Ireland medals with Ryan's Club All-Ireland. So,
Michael, you're surely mad to jump in.
No, I couldn't hear exactly who are the relatives from Ryan Donal.
My uncles, the Burkes, John Burke, would have played for Offaly and won a good few All-Irelands with Ryan's.
No All-Irelands with Ryan's. They won a few Leinsters, all right, but Burr the only club in Offaly with All-Irelands, I can tell you.
Maybe I'm wrong there then, sorry.
No, they definitely have a couple of Leinsters, all right. They would have been unbelievably good in the 80s and even in the early 90s as well.
Yeah, I was back in the day now, yeah.
Yeah. Who would be the sort of players that you would have admired? Is there anyone you would have modelled your game on?
Not too sure now. I suppose Tony Kelly growing up, he's obviously still playing, but and then obviously make a joke. Probably my favorite player, yeah.
Yeah. Tony Kelly's 29 now, and you're what, about 25?
2025, but sure. Was it 13 they won?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was only a chap then. So yeah, maybe if you look at the lads, sure. Lads like I suppose the lads who are just so creative, like Austin Gleeson and Keane Lynch and all, like them lads, like it's hard not to model your game off them because they're the level they're playing at.
Yeah, and like, is it one of those things where you were always a good ball striker when you were young, or did you have to work incredibly hard on it?
Yeah, I was actually more of a fielder, a wing forward, just lumping puck outs on when I was younger. And then when I came up the first year, it was Gerard Cunningham was manager. I was actually just pure chance that I ended up hitting the frees. Because I never used to hit the frees when I was younger. Colin Curry at the club, he used to hit them all the way going up. And even with underage teams at Dublin, he used to hit the frees. So I kind of just fell into the free taking role. And then I suppose when I was hitting the frees, I had to try and practice them then. So I suppose the striking kind of came after that. And then COVID as well. 6 months there in COVID, I probably would have done a lot of work just striking and hitting frees and shooting. So probably seeing the rewards of that at the end of the last couple of years.
And you seem to score the same point over and over, where you sort of stand off a little bit, wait for someone to give it you out the back door, and you pop it over from 65 yards on the sideline during open play as well. Like, at what age of your career did you realise stepping back in the pocket was a nice way to pick up scores?
Yeah, I got a good bit of abuse for that now, in fairness. But I don't know. I just try and get myself open, I suppose. And I suppose when you're in a ruck, you always kind of see Kilkenny are very good at it. Like, see the ruck ball and someone just there comes out and sits in the pocket and gets the free ball and throws it over. So it's just about trying to find space where you can get a shot or deliver it in. It is all you're trying to do, and a lot of forwards trying to think of it all times.
So you had a great win against Naas at the weekend in Portlaoise, 2-14 to 17 points. The goals from Kieran Stacey and AJ Murphy. But you seem to have them at arm's length for a lot of the game, and then they brought it back to a point late on. That must have been very nervy.
Yeah, they finished strong. In fairness, they're a good side, so we knew they weren't gonna just throw their arrows down after we got a bit of a lead. I suppose we probably took them by a bit of surprise with 2 goals straight after half time. So in fairness, they came back. I think after the first goal, they came back and got 3 points straight away. And then we got the second goal then. It was probably a bit of a sucker punch for them. But in fairness, they came back to within 1. And luckily, we were just able to hold on. We kind of got free and just allowed it.
Donal, just what have the last 6 weeks been like, even around the club? Like first ever county title, and then now rolling on to like a first ever Leinster title. It must be a bit surreal. Like, you've been waiting a long time to get to this position, and now you're gone from not being able to get over the line in the Dublin final to potentially getting over the line in the Leinster final. It must be a crazy time around the place.
Yeah, it's mad. The last 6 weeks have been just flown by. That was just the way. Even going around the club, like there's coffee shops all around the club, and it's hard not to run into someone, and the buzz and all. It's savage. Like, so, look, hopefully we'll try not to get too caught up in the commotion this week, but hopefully now we've another couple of celebratory days now next week.
Nice to have a final in on home ground as well, isn't it?
Well, lads actually live on the team, lives over on Fitzroy Avenue there. It's only about 30 yards from Croker's.
That's a handy one, in fairness. There's a question in there, Donal, I just want to ask you. It's unusual that I'd say if you went down to nearly every inter-county free taker, I'd say they've all probably been hitting them since they were kids. Galan, TJ Reid, even thinking about Henry Shefflin and Owen Kelly, all down through the years. And Cuckoo just asked, lads, can you ask Donal about any tips for taking frees? You obviously had a bit of time, had to make up for a bit of lost time. Any tips for, guys hitting frees at any level?
I wouldn't say there's any one particular way to hit free, to be honest. It's kind of just going out with a load of balls and just finding what works there and finding what doesn't. So I would have maybe 10 or 12 different ways of hitting frees as growing up and over a couple of years. But you just kind of make little tweaks as you go along, and once you find the one way that the one that suits you, just try and consistently and hitting that every free is probably the main thing after that. So there wouldn't be any secret to hitting on the hill. So it's just more getting out and practicing and just finding what suits you and what you're comfortable with.
I hate the word, but would you go through a process hitting frees? Like, would you have like a certain kind of things that you do? Do you place the ball a certain way? Do you stand a certain way? Like, what way do you go about it?
Yeah, you would. You'd have a routine, like, and I'd say there's no two free takers that have the same one. So, do you want me to go through what I do? Is it?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, why do you have it? Yeah.
I suppose I haven't hit one now in a while, so I'm maybe a rusty. And so I probably face the ball down with the rims, so I wouldn't have the rims. Pick the ball up without touching the rims, so the ball is at an angle. It's hard to probably describe it now without a slitter. Then I'd have me right foot in front of me left. Kind of try and replicate a shot out of my hands. So when you say hit a shot out of your hands, you kind of bring your back foot behind you. So kind of do something similar to that as I'm lifting it. Back foot come behind, and then I don't lift it up too high. It's tricky now. If you lift it too high, it goes off one way. And you lift it too low, it'll go off the other. So you're trying to find that comfortable motion where you lift it up and then strike it at the hip, and then hopefully it goes straight.
Was it one of those things where, like, do you ever get have confidence issues with it? Now, I do remember a county quarterfinal against Jude's once. You're both, yourself and Danny Sutcliffe, both of you had a bit of an off day on the frees eventually. And I think Colin took over the frees that day. But it's one of those things where you quickly, short memory like a forward should have, and then you're grand the next day.
Yes. I think the mental part of it is probably the toughest part. You just have to, if you miss a free, you just have to kind of remember your routine for the next one. So not much use in thinking about the last one. Like, probably would have struggled now when I started hitting them. Obviously, because coming from not hitting a free to hitting frees for your county it's a big jump. So I probably would have struggled there for a couple of years. But I suppose I've kind of learned over the last maybe 2 or 3 years that bit of experience has kind of helped me just to put it in the back of my mind and focus on the next one.
Yeah, and considering your last two, well, your current Dublin manager and your previous hurling manager with Dublin are Galway men. Are they the maddest county in Ireland? About the hurling, that is.
The hurling, yeah, you can't fault on that. Yeah.
Yes, but what's Micheál brought to the team? Obviously, it didn't go right against Clare, and you could talk about it till the cows come home. But what's he brought to the panel?
Yes, I think it's just a bit of freshness, and I suppose he's trying to instill that bit of a belief in us. Obviously, he's managed Galway to the All-Ireland, like, so he knows what he's talking about. So hopefully now we can, I suppose, put that bit of belief into a bit of silver now in the next year or two.
Yeah, and do you have more players coming? We were so impressed with Paddy Doyle, for example, this year. But do you feel like there's more talent coming?
Definitely. Especially, I think the last couple of 20s teams have been very promising in Dublin. So hopefully, in the next couple of years and further beyond that, we can start producing more.
And do you think the days of people referring to Dublin, this would have been 10 years ago now, but the whole thing of manufactured hurlers, which I've got tick with plenty of times, obviously been up in Dublin GA for a long time. Do you think that's gone or going?
I think so, yeah. It's hard at this day and age. The game has gotten so skillful, it's hard to be a manufactured hurler and win. So I think that's definitely gone out of the game. The way the game has gone, it's so skillful now these days.
And who's the silkiest Dublin panel? Yeah. Who's the silkiest in the Dublin panel? You'll have to exclude yourself, obviously.
We've a few now. We've a young lad coming up, Diarmuid O'Donoghue now. He's very, very
yes. I coach him with UCD freshers, so I can confirm this is true.
He's a handy little hurler. So there's a couple of lads. It has to have Conor Burke now is handy with the hurl. Obviously Ronan Hayes, he savage hurler for some of the Crokes lads. Would be very handy with the hurl. So he's a lot of good hurlers. So hopefully we can show that now in the next 6 months.
Outside of Diarmuid O'Donoghue, Donal, who else should we be looking out for over the next couple of years? Young up and coming lads that you expect to make a big mark for the Dubs.
I suppose Crokes are producing a few good hurlers. Davy Crow, he's a defender now. Hopefully he was unlucky with injury there last year. Hopefully now he can push on it.
Yeah, he's another very good hurler. So, just Donal, in terms of Dublin next year, how far do you think you can go? You were very unfortunate, I suppose, when COVID struck that time a couple of years ago. 4 players robbed from the setup on the day. Owen O'Donnell had to go off injured after 3 or 4 minutes. There must be that sense that if you can get it to click, that there's at the very minimum a Leinster title there for you.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think we were close now this year. In fairness, a couple of different results went our way. Like we could have been in the Leinster final. So I think we're definitely knocking on the door, and they're probably getting that consistency in the performances. So-called big teams, like, and that bit of belief then will hopefully join through now next year.
Yeah, and we were saying before the quarterfinal this year of Dublin that we thought, oh, you're not playing, so the chances are Crokes will win this game, unless AJ Murphy catches fire and he hits 3-4. He's had some year.
Savage, yeah. Look, a lot of lads have stepped up now, in fairness, on the team. So hopefully they can keep the form going now for Saturday.
And how did Brian Ryan, who of course was on the Limerick panel that won in All Ireland, how did he ended up with Na Fianna this year?
Yeah, a couple of us went to college with him in DCU, so we were friendly enough with him, and he trained with us there. He was living in the area, so he trained with us there. I think it was last year and the year before, because he was travelling up now to Limerick. So he was training with us, and he knew a good few of us. So he said when he was moving up to a club this year, so he said he's coming up there. So
sounds like he's leading the recruitment campaign, Michael.
It looks something like it. Once a lad starts training in a club, he's one step closer. Once you have the foot in the gate, you're kind of thinking, Jesus, why are you like inflicting so much hardship on yourself going up and down the road? You could save your career by another 3 or 4 years if you transfer up here. Sounds like that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
No comment.
Well, look, Donal, really appreciate you joining us. Good old crack, and best of luck in the final at the weekend.
Perfect, sound lads. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Donal. Good man.
Yeah, to be fair to Na Fianna, like for it being their first run into the Leinster Championship, this has been really impressive to get straight to the final. You would have seen the vast majority of Dublin teams, and look, this sounds like I'm building up Coola by saying it, but like a lot of the teams have struggled over the years. Like Crokes came very close last year, but this has been excellent from Na Fianna straight off the bat because they've looked good in both games.
Yeah, they have. And they always had themselves in a winning position in both games. Although like Raharney got back and made it tight in the second half, all right, and Naas got back on Saturday and made it very, very tight. But it's been polished, hasn't it? It's been polished for a team that hasn't been in this position before, and you have everything that comes with winning the first county title and the release that comes from that. I believe they were back in the gym maybe by that weekend, and as Mark Bergin was saying earlier, the first session is the hardest. You just need to blow those kind of cobwebs off. But once you get that first session, I remember running with Burr on a Friday after winning the county final, and like lads were dying. Like there was, lads were in bits, and there's a few lads getting sick or whatever. But once you have that kind of session over and done with, you're kind of back on the horse. It's kind of a difficult thing to do, but once you're in that kind of routine, you're back in routine, you're on the horse again, you train again a couple of days later, and you get on the road. And yeah, it's been really impressive for them. And just even chatting to someone about the game last night, and I'm sure we'll go into it more on Thursday, you'd probably say that Croke Park would probably suit Na Fianna a bit more, just given the array of attackers they have and the speed that they have up front.
Are you telling me that Owen Wall and Mark Bergin wouldn't enjoy Croke Park? Conor Heary?
Yeah, they would enjoy it. I just think Na Fianna might enjoy it a bit more now, to be honest. That's not to say that I'm tipping anybody yet, because I haven't made my mind up yet.
Yeah. Would you start talking about matchups then now, and you're saying it might suit some of the Na Fianna forwards? How do you think Hugh Lawler, Paddy Deegan and Mikey Butler are going to go?
Oh, they should go well. They should go well in Croke Park too. I suppose you have a high-scoring team in Na Fianna coming up against a mean team in O'Loughlin's, who are, in fairness, maybe we're underplaying them a bit, and I think we probably are, and I probably have in the last 2 games. Yeah, they're built on a solid defence, but they're well able to put up a good score. They hit 20 points to win a county final. They hit 216 the last day against Mount Leinster. They hit 17 the other day in really, as Tiger Woods would say, really tough conditions in Tullamore. Really tough. So we're probably underplaying them a bit, and yeah, they mightn't have a real marquee forward, shall we say, but they've 7 or 8 lads chipping in with scores, and basically you'd say anybody from Hugh Lawler. Do you know what? You wouldn't even say from 5 up. 2 and 3 can definitely score, and anywhere from 5 up then can score as well. So they have lads chipping in from anywhere. Hugh Lawler well able to score if he gets a chance. Mikey Butler can as well. The 2 wing backs, Paddy Deegan. So it's a real kind of sum of their parts job. And no, I was really impressed with the first half the last day. I'd say that does make them favourites going into the final, and deserved favourites.
You actually mentioned there that Hugh Lawler can score. He once scored a winning point for Kilkenny. Name the match. Seniors.
Oh yeah. Was it in Nolan Park?
No. Croker.
Was it? You have me there. Wasn't against Galway, was it?
No, it wasn't. And you can keep saying it wasn't against X team, Y team as if that isn't your guess. No, you're wrong.
Dublin.
It wasn't at Nolan Park. It was,
Dublin.
Yeah, remember the day that they were 16 points ahead on Dublin?
Yeah.
Dublin pulled it all the way back, and Hugh Lawler came up and scored that winning point.
Did he score a point? Did he score a point in an All-Ireland final? I'm just thinking of some. No, it was against Galway. He got an unbelievable point. Was it in the Leinster? He scored a point off Conor Whelan in one of the games. Was it last year? I can't remember. He has scored a couple of points, and I just love how he charges out with ball. And they're very clever. Like Lawler, Deegan, and to a lesser extent Mikey Butler, because he's played as more of a man marker. But they look to get them on the ball when they're trying to charge out. They look to get them on the ball because they know that they have the athleticism to break a tackle and create an overlap for somebody else.
Yeah, they had 9 different scorers from play the other day. Mark Bergin, Sean Bulger, Owen Wall, Owen O'Shea, Paddy Butler, Cian Loy, David Fogarty, Jordan Malloy, Conor Heary. So it's great to have that spread. Now, Na Fianna, to be fair to them, they have plenty of threats as well. And like Shane Barrett, who of course played with Dublin up until 4 or 5 years ago, he's not starting at the moment either. I don't know if there's an injury or if it's just selection policy. Like, it'll be amazing to think that you have 2 lads who have or are currently Dublin players in your forward line, and neither of them are starting at the moment, and still you're getting all the way to a Leinster final. No more than, I suppose, what Trillick have done this year, getting to an Ulster semi-final and taking it to extra time without, I suppose, Tyrone's main man and Matty Donnelly. But just to stay with Na Fianna, Colin Curry, he scored 8 points, 7 frees. Kieran Stacey, 1-1. So that goal was just after half-time. And, you know, I had felt that Na Fianna had the whip hand in this game, but Naas were always hanging in there. I don't know if Naas ever got the best out of themselves. But Stacey's goal just after half-time, brilliant finish, but it was a really good run initially from John Tierney. And then he passed it on to someone, possibly one of the Currys, can't remember, and they patted it on for Kieran Stacey to finish. AJ Murphy with the other goals. The other goal, I should say. But they just have different lads who chip in with scores, and that's the beauty of Na Fianna. I don't think that, like O'Loughlin's, I don't think they have to worry about one man will have to do the scoring for us. I mean, to do it without Dublin's best forward to get this far, I think is just quite exceptional.
Well, it would have been said before this year that they rely too much on Donal Burke, and look how that's been absolutely blown out of the water. And even we were just chatting Liam Rush before the county final, he said maybe it was about time, and he hasn't been there that long, so maybe it's okay for him to make this comment. He just said it was about time other lads started chipping in a bit more, and we weren't relying on Donal, and they kind of had to when he wasn't there. But it's a phenomenal one, really, and like they haven't limped over the line in games like that. That county final was over at half time, and they've been strong in their 2 games since. Expecting a right good final now. Expecting a right good game. It is nice to have home advantage for Na Fianna, though, in fairness.
It is only out the road. Sure, lads will only have to roll out of bed and go in and play an Leinster final. But I do wonder at what stage are these injuries going to add up, because if you don't have Donal Burke, if you're a little bit concerned about Shane Barrett's fitness, again, I don't know, it could just be a team selection issue. But Paul O'Dea, who's been very good at wing back and would have been part of the Dublin panel, I'm not sure if he's part of the wider Dublin panel at the moment or not, but he had to go off after 32 minutes. So I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be able to play. I mean, Conor McHugh, for a lad who's a full forward and was on the Dublin radar the last couple of years in the big ball, he's been very, very impressive in the full back line. He's just one of these lads, gets out, gets stuck in, drives out, makes the right decision with the ball, and he's been very, very good. But I think we'd have to credit Jonathan Tracy, their goalkeeper. There was an excellent chance for Naas to get a goal early in the second half. Kevin Ahern, he drove through, hit the crossbar, and then I think it was Jack Sheridan turned around with the rebound, and a very good save from Jonathan Tracy. So that was key. And like late on, if Naas had to get a goal as well, they were pushing all the way. You know, it's key. Like, you know yourself, if you don't have a solid goalkeeper in either code, eventually it'll cost you.
Yeah, I have to say it was an absolute pleasure to play in front of Brian Mullins for as long as I did, because you just knew you were in the safest hands possible.
You really made him feel safe. Come on, stop being safe.
I wish that was the case. I'd say I gave him a few sleepless nights. There's nothing like having that safety behind you. Just knowing that. And listen, because we've all been in that position where, you know, if you protect the ball back, that maybe it's not in safe hands and you're maybe trying to do too much then. So I think it's only when you have those really safe hands behind you and you know that they're going to just be really cool on the ball, and the puckouts are going to be on point. It makes some difference, particularly this time of the year. Like Dublin have a fair array of keepers now at this stage. You know, between Eddie Gibbons, Jonathan Tracy, Sean Brennan, obviously as well, and there's probably a couple more underage keepers that I'm forgetting. Like there's no shortage of them anyway.
No, there sure isn't. Kildalkey, their season is over. Obviously, you'll be well aware of what's going on with them living in Meath. But Thomastown just had way too much. There was a serious spread of scores for Thomastown this game. Robbie Donnelly got 11 points, Jack Holden 2-2, Thomas O'Hanrahan and Luke Kennellan, they got a goal each. John Joe Farrell and John Donnelly, they got 2 points apiece. Peter MacDonald, the point. I mean, Thomastown are one of these teams that will, they have to be unbackable favourites for the All-Ireland. Realistically, they probably should have gone up senior in Kilkenny 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and they're probably in a better place now. That the fact that they didn't go up a couple of years ago, I'd say. I think we both probably predicted a Thomastown win, and by maybe 6 or 7 in Thursday's show, but nothing like this. What was it, 19 points in the wind-up? It was an annihilation, really. And even, like, looking at it on paper, you're thinking, like, the two kind of star men, or what you'd look at, the two Kilkenny men from down through the years, John Joe Farrell and John Donnelly, 2 points each, and they're able to, you know, put 4-15 together without them. But no, listen, like they could be in a Kilkenny senior semi-final next year. Definitely, I'd be fancying to get to quarter-final anyway. So they definitely look the strongest of the teams remaining across. You have to say across any of the provinces, but they're coming up against a Bray Emmett side in the Leinster final, who are reigning champions. The door was probably a bit ajar last year when Danesfort were beaten, and they ended up beating Trim then, who beat Danesfort in the Leinster final. They had a good win at the weekend, beating 𝘱𝑉 Marnock 116-15. They were down John Henderson again. Don't know if he'll be back for the Leinster final, but they had 𝘱𝑉 Doyle centre back. When I was in Wicklow, he was only raw, kind of 19-year-old. Did
you put him in under the wing?
I did not. He was a wild enough boy back then, but he's settled down a fair bit now. He's a fair animal now. He's about 6'4". He's kind of nearly the build of a sprinter. Big athletic fella. Was on a load of ball. They kind of worked it so that he was able to play a sweeper at times as well, and he was charging out with ball. He was brilliant, and obviously it was Christy Morehouse up front that did most of the damage, but they had a greater probably spread of scores over the weekend than they would normally have. Didn't rely on Morehouse as much as normal, like Dermot Masterson, McCormick, and a few more chipping in. Like that'll be a good final, but you'd still be expecting Thomastown to come out on top there.
So just to go back to the other team again, Thomastown, who are going to be in the final, and they will be massive favourites. I don't care what anyone says. They'll be 10-point favourites against Bray, which kind of gives Bray something, you know, a bit of a real cause to go out and show people, look, we can compete with teams from other levels. But I mean, you are talking about a Division 3 team in the league in Dublin, and fair enough, for a lot of the year they won't have, I suppose, their Wicklow players for those games, which weakens them significantly. But I mean, Thomastown have to be huge favourites here. One of their players won the Pearse Medal in 2016. I don't know if you remember the Pearse Medal.
Vaguely, but you'd have to enlighten me.
So this was the 2016 was the inaugural year of like a Leinster Player of the Year. So
yes,
one for football, one for hurling. Who won the Pearse Medal?
I know it. I mentioned him there a couple of minutes ago. It was mad. I think he scored 1-5 from playing that Leinster final, and then, unfortunately for him, Mark Noel Connors in the All-Ireland semi-final, and might have been taken off at half-time, and may not have started a championship match for Kilkenny thereafter for the rest of his career.
Yeah. So are people going to name him? Will we wait for people to comment?
Yeah, they surely will. Jesus, we fairly narrowed down the options at this stage.
Yeah, and actually, here's one though. Who won the Pearse Medal for football that same season?
2016.
Jenny.
Dublin obviously won Leinster. Is it someone outside of Dublin No, it's not. 16. Who was footballer of the year in 16? Oh God, Dean Rock,
Dermot Connolly, and Cassius King is correct, as is Harburn 6. It was John Joe Farrell that won it. I see Cormac Ross here saying real issue in football at the weekend with people taking scoreable frees much closer to the goal, and throws in a suggestion: time for a soccer style spray on the pitch. I mean, in theory, I actually I've often thought that the spray would be brilliant in GA as well, but who's going to pay for it? And I don't even... How much is it for a bottle of that stuff?
It's hardly that much now, in all fairness. It couldn't be that much. I would say that it should be a duty of the linesman if it's something that's brought in, because there's enough for the referee to be doing already without carrying a can of spray around in their pocket as well.
Hold on, I'm seeing €8.26. I'm seeing that's ice spray now. No, that won't do at all. Vanishing referee spray, £64 on Etsy.
Oh, wow.
So who's going to pay for that?
I'd say no referee would buy it for fear of not getting his money back.
Yeah, and rightly so. Okay, so that's going to
now. Can I just say to you, it is one of the more, when you're when you're losing or you're trailing, and the winners are taking the proverbial with freeze and taking up another 5 or 10 yards. Like it is something, and spectators go absolutely nuts. Because it's just, he's probably wasting time. He's after stealing a couple of yards. I love it because it's, there's a bit of an ingenuity from players. But it would definitely, I haven't noticed it been a real issue in recent times now, I have to say. Years ago, maybe more so. But when a free is in around the 13 or the 21, it's amazing how the angle is made so much more favourable for the free taker. I definitely wouldn't be against that type of a rule. But I'd say I'd probably have the linesman enforce it and make them do a bit more.
Yeah, and 𝘱𝘳𝘢𝘁𝘓 is agreeing. Our linesman just puts down a marker, e.g. a corner or flag. We really haven't gotten to the bottom of how you're going to justify predicting O'Loughlin Gaels to lose games and win the at the same time. At some stage, are you going to admit that you've been running with the hare and hunting with the hound?
What my prediction was that if they got over Mount Leinster, that they would win Leinster. That's what it was.
And did your aunt go a pair of 𝘰𝘄𝘀𝘀𝘀 in the meantime?
But I didn't think, I thought there was a fair chance that Mount Leinster would win.
Do you admit it made you look like a clown?
But sure, I'm already a clown. I'll bring out the red nose for Thursday's show. It's funny because I'd say O'Loughlin's are absolutely delighted because I was the only one batting for them when they were in Kilkenny, and now I'm giving them a bit of motivation outside of Kilkenny.
Verney wrote us off after being the only lad writing them on. Okay, so the junior, you might read out the junior result there.
I surely will, yeah. It finished Tuller Ross Burkin 217, Father O'Regan's Cranford, Wexford 18 points. So just a couple of quick little asides here. It was a tight enough game, and Cranford had it back to a point at one stage. Cian O'Donoghue, who was excellent for Tuller, a very, very good player. They seem to have a load of young fellas coming through. And I believe Wally Walsh is even teaching a good few of them. He's a teacher in Good Counsel College in New Ross. And this is another little kind of strand to it. A load of the Tuller lads would have went to college with even a good few of the Wexford lads as well. Maybe not necessarily Cranford lads, but a lot of them will go to school and go council, and that's why they'd usually be fairly handy at the football as well. Cian O'Donoghue, as I mentioned, was excellent. Pat Hartley's still going strong at centre back. He must be 20 years playing club, I'd say, at this stage. And just as well as that, Walter Walsh, in an interview after with South East Radio, chatting to Liam Spratt, he committed to Kilkenny for 2024. So I think that's important for Derek Lyng. You don't want to lose everybody in 1 year. Like it is an ideal situation where, like, if Wally's going to stay on, he stays on for another year with Pádraig Walsh and with Richie Hogan gone out the door. Like some people, I think people are very short-sighted with regards to older players. They're like, oh, bring in the new lads, get the new lads in. Doesn't work like that. If you have 5 or 6 elder statesmen, you definitely don't want them all to go at the one time. You want it to kind of be a drip feed kind of a job, and you can bring lads in, but your team is not shorn of experience as well. Like, it's all grand saying throwing young lads in, but you need the wise head beside them. And maybe the young fella does the work and the movement for the older fella who uses his head a bit more. And then the young fella learns from the old fella. And then when he's in that position in 15 years' time, he does the exact same for a young fella that comes in and is playing in the corner when he's the old fella. And that's like, it's the circle of the GA life almost.
Yeah, it sure is, Elton. It sure is. No, but I do agree. Like, it can be somewhat disastrous if you root a load of older players out at once, throw in the young lads and ask them to figure it out. You do need to learn by osmosis and have those players coach you on the pitch and tell you what's right and wrong and standards and all that kind of stuff. And it amazes me how often I see teams across the country, and I'm probably talking more club teams, whereby they have a huge amount of players under the age of like 23. They would have a few lads who are a little bit older, and there'd be probably a lost generation of like 5 years between 23 or 24 up to like the late 20s. I think it's amazing how often there's those lost generations. Even actually from my class in school, I think the vast majority who would have hurled all the way up to the minor were probably a lost generation. Most of them. There's obviously a few who did go on, but that can happen too. There can be, and it's probably hard to explain sometimes why you end up with these lost generations. It can't just be what I've seen. I'm sure other people are the same.
Yeah, no, it will often happen. That's why I think, I don't know, like, there's a lot. Obviously, you want to bring quality through the whole time, but to me, in a GA club, it's all about quantity. It's all about keeping as many numbers playing for as long as is humanly possible, particularly up through the underage ranks. Then you want to get through as many of them to play whatever level of adult they can play, and just keep them involved in the GA, because some of them might drift away from hurling, but they might go and be on the club committee or something like that, or they might get involved in something. But it's so important to keep lads through, coming through the whole way and get as many through as you can. But Wally and Pat Hartley, or Pat Hartless, as some of the boys call him in Kilkenny. It's a great name, like, because Bret Hart, Owen Hart, the Harts, and then Hartley thrown on the end of it. And they obviously have a big Leinster final coming up as well. They're playing Carrigan Riverstown, who would have, it was comprehensive enough against Leixlip, finished 4-14 to 3-8. And funnily enough, like, Tuller have a lot of young fellas coming through. Carrigan Riverstown is the vast majority of young fellas, like the likes of Lee Hogan, Ryan Hogan, Cathal King, Peter King. It's generally a very, very young squad. They've kind of gone with a hell of a lot of youth. They've had a lot of success at underage. This team was just beaten in the under-20 final by a star-studded Kilcormac karate team a couple of weeks ago. They had fancied themselves going into it, but just from the bits I saw at Tuller yesterday, they're going to be hard beaten. And there was a point that Wally got at the very end. It was gas. He was sitting back really, really deep, and they came charging out with the ball, and he's just running off your shoulder, just looking for that pop pass. And once he gets moving, there is no stopping him. I don't know who trailed him now. Someone did trail him, and we're right behind him to get the hook in, but he did that patented kind of little flick or scoop over the bar, and there was nothing they could do about it. But I think when Wally was 17, I think Tuller went on a run to the All-Ireland final, and they're obviously back down junior level again, and they'd be fancied to probably get back to those latter stages again.
Yeah, Harburn 6 says Tuller are missing Martin Murphy, only 18, a serious prospect. Difference was the full forward lines. Danny Glennon got a serious goal. And Richard Hogan asked, did Danny Glennon play the full match? Har might be able to let us know what the answer was to that one.
Martin Murphy's a very good player from the bits I've seen of him, yeah. And it was a good sign for Tuller's strength and depth that they were able to win a big game like that without him.
We're going to have to look into splitting Turin in two. They're after winning their fourth Connacht Intermediate hurling title in a row. I think it's their fifth in 7 years. Like, the calls for a Connacht Senior Hurling Club Championship, they might louden now. And I know the plan is to put the Galway clubs into the Leinster Championship, and the chairman Paul Bellew was talking about that in recent enough times. But surely now Turin, especially if they go on to win the All-Ireland, and maybe they'll have to do that, as we've said before, to really have these calls amplified. But they're putting together a serious little CV at this stage after beating Ballindereen 21 points to 19. And they've gone 4 points to 0 behind early on. I suppose there's always that concern that you'll have a bit of a no performance. Like, they don't have Cathal Freeman this year. I was listening to Adrian Hession talking to Galway Bay FM after it, and they're down 4 players from last year as far as I know, including Cathal Freeman, who would be a very key man there. So they're doing brilliantly. Yeah,
Cathal Freeman, not only would he be one of Turin's key men, he'd be one of the best players on the Mayo panel. Not sure if he was involved now last year. I actually don't think he was. But he'd be a big, big loss at club level. But this was, as you say, they seem to be able to go about their business at this level very, very professionally. The two Bolins were very, very good. Michael Mordy at fullback. One of my buddies is actually living up in Turin, and he was actually having a few scoops with them last night. And I believe they're regular viewers of the show as well. So big shout out to Turin. I think probably what you said there. I think they probably will have to win the All-Ireland for calls for the Connacht Senior Club Championship to be reinstated again, because realistically, when this Turin team moves on, whenever that is, will the future Mayo champions be able to be competitive with a Galway force at senior level? We don't know. Is this just the best Mayo club team that we've seen for many years? Maybe it is. but they were really, really impressive. And they'd be like, who have we got left? We're still looking at Thomastown, Bray. You obviously have Turin at this end.
Corofin in Clare.
Corofin are a good side as well. Yeah.
Who are Corofin playing in the Munster final? God Almighty, why can't I think of it off the top of my head?
I can't think of it either, to be honest with you.
Lost to who?
I tell you who it's not. It's not a tip team anyway.
You shut up, will you?
I don't think it's a Waterford team either, because Ardmore were beaten.
Oh, Christ Almighty! Why can't I think of it?
Must be. Is it Castle Lyons? No.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, very good. Castle Lyons, Sully 180 says it. So is that Crater?
Yeah, poor old Crater.
Yeah. Joe Butler says, I couldn't divide myself in two to go to the Turin match. I had to go to my first love and support my own club, which is O'Loughlin's. Well done, Turin.
He's having some time of it, Joe. Joe, you won't like us talking up Turin or O'Loughlin's, Janie Mac, but you're having some time of it at the minute.
Yeah, and I mentioned that Ballindreen had a good start. They went 4-0 up, but it was 10-8 at half-time to Turin, so they really took over that game. Late on, though, in the game, Ballindreen had a 21-yard free to level it. It was saved. Rebound came back out. A Ballindreen player fired at that goal, but it just went over and their chances evaporated then. So, brilliant for Turin. Great scenes on the final whistle, and they're back into an All-Ireland semi-final. The junior hurling semi-final. Now, this was a Sligo team, 𝘬𝑆key, beating Ballinasloe. And so we had a Connacht intermediate final and a junior final. Galway teams lost both finals. Commiserations to them. But I suppose, given what we've heard in the last couple of weeks in terms of ring fencing teams into the Lorry Maher, in terms of no league for these teams, to see a Mayo team and a Sligo team win intermediate and junior titles in hurling, I think that's brilliant. It should be a boost for any team is aspiring. It's
class, yeah, and it's exactly why when Sean Kelly brought in this idea as president, it was for teams like this, and particularly from those counties and in hurling, to be able to go on a run like this. I think Castleblaney Fogs were in an All-Ireland junior final a couple of years ago. 𝘬𝑆key were in a final last year. Turin were in an All-Ireland semi-final. That's exactly why the competition was brought in. It finished 𝘬𝑆key 118, Ballinasloe 212. Andrew Kilcullen, who was, the main man with Sligo as well, he hit 111 on the day, including a penalty in the first half. And Jimmy Gordon was praised with a last-minute save to prevent a draw. So he obviously saved the penalty. Made a great save to prevent a draw at the very end. One fella I do want to ask you about, Shane, because I was hearing rave reviews about him, and you had him when you were with UCD. By all accounts, Cathal O'Hanlon seems to have been Ballinasloe's best player, and by some distance. What type of a player is he, and is he someone potentially that could be, senior county standard in time?
Well, I suppose last year, when Eamon O'Shea and Tommy Dunn were doing that development panel and they played against, was it a New York team, or do I have that wrong?
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
There was some winter tournament anyway. He was in that panel. I'm not sure if he played, but definitely performed quite well for us with UCD last year. Sort of player, good stick man, has a bit of pace, but I suppose from his own point of view, and as I would have said to him in the past as well, probably needs to start eating the weights now in the next couple of years, get up physically to that level. Of course, you'd be hoping that a lad who has aspirations, and look, I mean, I'd love to see him kick on. It's tough when your club team is down at junior level, but look, that doesn't mean that he can't kick on to the next level. So eat the weights a little bit. Obviously, eat the weights in the right way. But isn't that also the case for an awful lot of freshers who can be skin and bones when they come into college?
Yeah, of course. And some lads will really apply themselves and go after it and get a good program and talk to someone. And really, you'll see them at 22 and 23 and they'll just be tanks and they'll be very, very hard to handle on the pitch. And then maybe other lads, it's a big commitment to go and do that. It's a tankless enough kind of thing, particularly when you're in college. Some lads will just go and get it done. Other lads will, not have their few scoops because that's okay. But other lads, yeah. But you can probably kind of do both. And do you know what's funny? And I remember Padjo Whelan saying this to me years ago. He was convinced that I needed to drink a pint. He was convinced I needed to start. He said, "Have a pint of Guinness."
So boring.
Yeah, I'm so boring. They're going to place me under arrest. He was convinced that I needed to have a pint to get a bit of, as he said, get a bit of iron into me. That was it. That was his reasoning. But there is a weight that you put on from having a few pints. That's not a bad weight. Am I wrong in saying that? I don't think
Okay,
I'm wrong.
Dr. Verney, yeah, this is interesting.
No, but like if you had a young fella, say, that was skin and bones and wasn't doing any gym work or anything like that, he started having a couple of pints and doing a bit of gym work, even just having a couple of pints, you do bulk up a small bit. I'm not saying that I'm a nutritionist or anything like that, but I do believe this to be true.
I'm not, no, I wasn't going to take the mick out of you. After I got, my appendix, I had to get a quick operation to get it out. I was under a bit of pressure for a few weeks, as you can imagine. The mother put me on a little, I wouldn't call it a potion, but basically it was a pint, half filled up with milk, half Guinness, down the hatch for a few days. It's lovely. Absolutely gorgeous.
Get a bit of iron into you.
Yeah, you. So to some degree, that maybe might back up your point. But would you? Oh, sure, you would never have done that. But I wonder, like, do many people out there, have they done something like that? Half Guinness, half milk. I mean, you were probably reared on pints of milk no more than myself.
Big time, yeah. Milk, no Guinness, just milk. But
Yeah.
I actually do like the whole few pints thing. I actually think is grand. Like for a lad, if he, as long as you're not drinking 12 pints 2 or 3 nights at the weekend, if you're having a couple of pints a week, absolutely no trouble. From a mental health point of view and from a physical health point of view.
This is interesting now. Pádraig Ryan. Daniel Craig said he used to sog 2 cans of Guinness before hitting the treadmill when bulking up for the bond roll. I don't know how you'd hit the treadmill after a horse and 2 cans of Guinness down the hatch.
Yeah, Janie Mac. Like I wouldn't be able to even work out after having certain, like if you had bad food, like say you had a packet of sweets or something like that, you'd struggle. You're you get the bit of protein into you, get the bit of iron into you.
What would you have had anything unusual that you would have eaten over the years, like in terms of like sports performance or post or pre-workout gym or whatever?
Used to have these salt sachets after matches for a couple of years. Can't think of what they were called. They were blue thing made in Galway. Used to come from the sea. It was good for helping with getting rid of cramp and stuff like that. But then I stopped taking them, and I think it was just a placebo, to be honest with you, because I just had it in my head that they were doing good. And then, do you know what happened? In a good way, I started caring less, and I started not thinking about it as much, and you recover as quick without them.
So, like, is it fair to say that, like, a lot of the reason that you prepare for the nth degree for a match is so that when you go out, you've no question marks in your mind? Like whenever I was playing, you know, whatever my best version of me was over the years, it was like I was doing everything right. I was doing the exercising, I was doing the stretching, I was doing the gym, the whatever, all the extra hurling work, and, you know, the food. And you'd go out, and there'd just be no question marks. So you'd be very relaxed playing. So, like, that's you getting back to the mindset of playing with freedom, I would have said. And that's why a lot of people try and tick so many boxes. Whereas, you know, when you're older and still out playing junior, you go out, relaxed, bit of freedom, even though you've zero preparation done. So it's all about getting back to that mindset of being relatively carefree. I believe you can be carefree and dialed into a job at the same time.
Oh, I think so, yeah. And I think those are lads that play to a really high level, I think. Just on that as well, though, when you don't have the boxes ticked, you know in a game that there's only certain runs you can make. Do you know what I mean? You know you can't.
Oh, yeah.
Like you know after 5 minutes that you can't be, like, if you're playing wing back, you can't be bombarding off the shoulder maybe looking for a ball, because it'll catch you 10 minutes later. Do you know what I mean? You know, I'd say you've probably played games where you know what you can do and what you can't do. Definitely in the last couple of years, I would have realised what I can do and what I can't do, and what runs I can and can't make, and that type of thing. And a lot of it is knowing what the gas tank is like. And if the gas tank is blinking a small bit before you're starting, you're kind of just surviving a lot of the time. And you have to be very smart about what you can and can't do. But isn't it a great position when you are in that space where you're going out and you're thinking, I've every box ticked here? Because it seeps into your mentality. If you know that you've done the training that you were supposed to do, if you know you've got up even to do, like I used to find it, I always stretched the morning of a match, not a major, just a lot of manipulation kind of stuff, 20 minutes. And I would have it in my head. I remember playing a game this year and I actually didn't have time to do it because I drove down. And it was like, that's in my head before the game, that I didn't get to do what I normally do. And it affects you. 100% it does. And it could only be a little small thing, but it would affect your mindset then going out and you're thinking, and then after 5 minutes when, you know, your man gets a ball off you and buries a ball or something like that, you're kind of thinking, sure, I don't have any work done here. Like, I deserve what I'm getting here almost. And it can just lead to a disaster or whatever.
Yeah, 𝘱𝗫𝘀𝘀 says, young lads all over the country quoting Verney to their club manager to start drinking.
I don't even drink myself.
Yeah. And I was going to say, one time though, I had so much preparation done that I must have been so relaxed. In the warm-up then, and there was a national anthem and the whole lot, like it was a championship semi-final, I then started saying to myself, geez, am I too relaxed here? What's going on here? You know, sometimes the mind can start playing tricks. But I suppose it's not the whole thing. The Camogie semi-finals are going to be very interesting. I saw Drum and Inch lost to Sarsfields at the weekend, which means we've got a strange one for the All-Ireland Club semi-final.
We definitely do. It's going to be Sarsfields from Cork against Sarsfields of Galway, which, like, I have a feeling that about 5 years ago, we talked about something like this on a show. But for the life of me, I can't remember who. And if any of our viewers know of a time when two clubs with the same name played against each other. Now, I have a feeling maybe Na Fianna's might have played against each other, or 𝘗𝑟𝑒𝑐 might have played against each other, which is kind of a variation of that name anyway. And maybe a Shamrocks. Like, I don't even know. I have Lochiel, Shamrocks played Ballyhale, Shamrocks. But I'm talking about just one name here, Sarsfields versus Sarsfields. It's going to be very, very confusing for whoever is commentating on it. And it's the sort of situation where no matter who we predict, even my prediction won't be wrong for that game.
Like, we could end up with, like, someday Ballina from Tip against Ballina in Mayo, or Corofin in Galway against Corofin of Clare. Could happen. There's got to be other examples of it. Isn't the reason that Springfield is the town that they use in Simpsons because there's so many towns in America called Springfield, so that, you know, nobody could say where it's supposed to be?
I love the fact that, like, they never give away what state they're in, and anytime they'd say Springfield and then state,
hi, Maud.
So yeah, a big loud noise or something like that comes on.
Okay, so we're seeing quotes there the other day from Maurice Deegan talking about the mood being very bad among referees, especially at club level. And in terms of, like, not that there'd be a massive strike, but if there's no support shown going forward, you're probably going to see a withdrawal of services or something like that. I'm basically saying the situation is not good. And it's not, I don't see, like, the money going through the roof for referees or whatever in professional sport. You know, for example, soccer, if they had a problem with getting referees, all of a sudden they can put the money up because there's billions in the game. That's not going to happen in GS. This problem isn't going to go away.
No, definitely not. Like, so many things wrong here. I suppose, like, if you start off, like, what they're actually getting for refereeing championship games is, you know, the fee is so minuscule that you really, really do have to absolutely love it, because chances are you're going to be at a loss. So you're definitely not going to be making anything significant, shall we say. Like, you'd be making more if you're refereeing challenge games 3 or 4 days a week and just getting cash into your hand or whatever than you are even at county level. Number two is just that I suppose a lot of referees feel like they're not being protected, and rightfully so, and protected on a couple of levels, be it attacks or whatever from people, and then, like, decisions that they make being undermined further down the disciplinary process. Like, it's not too many places where a referee makes it, or a governing body or someone makes a decision, then all of a sudden, you know, a week later it's completely ripped up and a player that was sent off is no longer suspended or whatever it is. Now, I did see an umpiring decision at the weekend, that game between was it Ballyhale and Glenullen up in Ulster. There was an umpiring decision that was absolutely atrocious. That is, like, and how the linesman on the near side didn't see it. Like, the ball was clearly wide, and at no stage was it ever over the bar. It was always wide, and I appreciate that the umpire was caught under the post, but it was always wide. And I suppose incidents like that and some, like, really bad refereeing decisions that we see kind of undermine it as well, because, like, I don't know, you know, you'd be level enough, I'd be level enough, but sometimes you're just, like, you're driven to insanity by some decisions that go on. And I do think, you know, the whole give respect, get respect, referees need to treat players and mentors with respect as well. And I'm not calling out anyone, I'm just saying that, you know, if they want it back, they need to give it out as well. But it definitely is not in a great place. I was chatting to 𝘰𝘰𝘀𝘀𝘀, the former referee from Clare, and he said the exact same thing, that a lot of protection is needed for referees on a lot of levels, and there's some sort of incentive needed for them as well.
I definitely think that if I was a referee, I'd be wearing a body cam. Just because of, I mean, I'm talking about these extreme cases where there's assault and so on.
It's just like, do you know what it reminds me of? It's like Rocky 5 is like, touch me and I'll sue. It's like, it's just like, touch me and I'll sue.
Richard Hogan says the linesmen need help in those cases, but that was football. Imagine trying to get that right in hurling. Cuckoo says, I know a lot of people won't like what I'm saying, but I think a rise in referees' payments would help with the lack of referees at underage local games. I mean, of course it would. The more money you throw out there, the more people are going to be interested in getting involved. And actually, I was going to bring this up. Speaking of respect, did you see the Owen Farrell incident over the weekend? I think he had asked the referee what the story was, and the ref gave him a bit of a snippy response, and he was like, there's no need to be rude type thing, which is true. There's an element of give and take. There's some referees, like referees do it a different way. I'll give you an example. There was 2 matches this year that I played, and this is junior level now, so I'm not talking at the very top level. But one match, I was getting fouled, and the referee, and eventually I was getting pulled for so long that eventually I just stopped, and I turned around to the referee, and he goes, if you do that the next time, and I was so clearly being fouled, he said, I'm going to give the free the other way, and he just gave me my free. So obviously it was a free. Then the next game, we were told by the referee, I can't remember if I was managing in this game or if I was playing in this game, and the referee said, if you're being fouled, feel free to stop up and I'll just give you the free. So there isn't a consistency of message. And I'm not saying it's easy to be a referee, but, you know, that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, listen, I've had a few run-ins with referees down through the years. I've only ever been sent off. I was sent off twice in my career, once in a challenge game, once in an under-21 final. But one of the maddest things I ever encountered with a referee was in a championship, a big championship game, knockout game. And I was kind of man-marking a fella, and he ran across me and actually dived right in front of the referee. And this is at the start of the game. Nothing had happened in the game at this stage. And the referee looked me plain in the eyes and just said, if you do that again, I'm sending you off. And I was just like, okay, you didn't blow for a free. I'm not on a tick. I haven't fouled anyone here. But if I do it again, I'm sent off. And I was just like, there was a distinct anger in the tone as well. And I think some referees really rub people up the wrong way. But we can't have games without them. So we need to make sure that we do whatever we can to keep the quality of the refereeing high and the quantity of referees high as well, to make sure that there's a surplus of them, if anything. Whereas we're going down the other path, and I've spoken to camogie and LGFA managers, and you think we give out about hurling and football decisions, the standard of refereeing in those codes is a hell of a lot lower than it is within the GAA. So our frustrations are nothing compared to managers and spectators pulling their hair out the length and breadth of the country in camogie and ladies football games.
Yeah, John O'Kinnan says intercounty refs don't get paid at all, just their mileage allowance and food expenses. This is at club provincial level too. Surely they should get a standard match fee along with it. Richard Hogan says it was Luke Pearson. He replied to a question from Farrell by saying, I can count. And Farrell replied, no need to be rude. Do you know what? With all this, it's easy to kind of dump down on referees or whatever, but I'd have to give huge credit for Kevin Falloon with the way he refereed most. No one's going to get everything right. So when I say most of the game between Trillick and Scottstown, this is high praise indeed. Scottstown obviously won after extra time, but what he did was, I felt he did not buy simulation. And I'm constantly tweeting about it. Players just going down easy or going into a tackle and waving the arms, or in football, falling over under the slightest bit of contact. I mean, it is a contact sport, and I think too often referees put the hand up for advantage when there's a bit of incidental contact, and the player gets on and he gets in space and he has a shooting position. I think at that stage you have the advantage that you're now in a scoring position. You've got so I think it's too much. There's too much given for these little half fouls at times. Yeah, the advantage, if he doesn't get away and clear and free and can't make a pass or whatever, fair enough, go back. But if he gets through to have an open shot, the advantage is done at that stage. Your advantage is a free shot. But I think Kevin Falloon did very well because he stopped simulation 3 or 4 times. And he came down hard on a couple of those swinging fists that we saw go in from different players on both sides. And Trillick, I think it kind of cost them towards the end. They had 2 frees near the end where they were caught for swinging arms going in. And ultimately, it cost them. So, huge credit to Kevin Falloon there.
Well, like there's nothing worse than a referee. Like I do find it a lot more. It's obviously been discussed amongst the referees. They're not buying what a lot of players are selling, particularly in hurling with the arms up like this. They're not buying it half as much, and the game is an awful lot better to look at as a result. And lads will just stop doing it, because if you're not getting a free in that scenario, you've stopped probably, and you've no momentum now, and chances are you could get blown for over carrying. It's good to see that referees are kind of cottoning on to it. There was a couple of mad things about that Trinix-Scotstown game. Number one, did you see Matty Donnelly with his right leg in a brace, kicking frees or kicking like points beforehand off his left foot? I think Cat O'Kane tweeted it, like, Jesus Christ. As somebody commented,
I go looking for it there.
As somebody commented underneath, there must be physios the length and breadth of the country ringing each other, going absolutely mad. But it's obviously a safe enough thing to do. It's a protective brace. It's not as if he's putting any great strain on it, but it kind of looked like a bit of a mad one, because it's not something you normally see a lad do, particularly when he's recovering from injury. I'd say the one thing you're told when you're recovering from that type of injury is to not put any pressure on it whatsoever. But he obviously, he definitely would have felt left out. And I'd say yesterday of all the days maybe was when they needed him, particularly at the end of normal time, and obviously at the end of added time and extra time as well. They came kind of so close. It's been kind of an underdog story nearly the whole way through, but they just came up short yesterday. Scottstown, like, Kieran Hughes' point off the outside of the left was an absolute thing of beauty. What would you think, like, about, I don't know, and I'm only, that's off the top of my head, like, should something like that be worth 2 points at this stage if you're playing over a blanket?
No, I just think teams should get better at availing of it. Like, for example, like every club team around Ireland has somebody that's brilliant at shooting from distance. So, like, should you start playing that player in a position where you can get him in the pocket, if you will, let's say a sideline pocket, what we were talking to Donal Burke about earlier in hurling, like, why not, kind of develop that in your football? Like, to be fair, Scottstown are a bit of an extreme example. Like, half the Monaghan team is in their panel there, and they've got some serious shooters with their goalkeeper, Rory Beggan. Funny I should bring up their goalkeeper first. But they have so many lads who could shoot from outside the 45. Conor McCarthy, Jack McCarran, who had a strange, like, he was man of the match, and rightly so, but he was a little bit off kilter with his own shooting from play. He missed 2 in the first couple of minutes. 1 was a free, all right. But I just think teams need to be smarter about how to use this. Like, look at the way Kieran Hughes got himself into that scoring position just inside the 45 when he got the mark against Kilcoo late on.
Yeah.
Teams have to be smarter about how to use it. We don't like the advanced mark, but like, I just think you have to be smarter to see, okay, who have I got that could get into that scoring position? And even if he does get marked by the opposition, at least it guarantees that we've got one fewer body to try and break down closer to goal. So you just need to use it better. Yeah,
totally. That was a brilliant score from Hughes as well. Conor McCarthy's levelling score was beautiful. And I think you've probably seen it with coaching as well. I think one of the most frustrating things is when guys run into space before they're supposed to make the run. And you look at Conor McCarthy and you see him actually walking down the sideline. And then all of a sudden just picks it up into a jog, and he knows or has a fair idea, in 5 to 6 seconds, this ball is going to be in my hands, but I can't give it away that quickly. And a lot of lads give it away. They show the run a couple of seconds too soon and they end up marked. He explodes at the last second. He's going at top speed. His marker is going at 60%. There's only one winner, even though Trillick were unbelievably unlucky not to get a block in. Like it was fingertips. It was nearly through the fingertips of the defender. But brilliant timing from McCarthy, who had been quiet to that point, to be honest with you, for his standards and the levels he got up to with I
honestly didn't realise he played first half. Like,
yeah, he'd been very quiet. Yeah, he'd been very quiet, but he came up trumps at the end when was needed. And I'd say the relieved men haven't got through to a final. And I've kind of been saying about Scottstown never getting over the line. A previous generation got over the line all right, but this current crop, it never has. Trauma Spieler just says 1 point is enough. Basketball is a joke now, as every team keeps trying 3-pointers all the time. The Stephen Curry effect, Steph Curry. Football would go the same if it was 2 points for long range. Yeah, potentially. Is a 3-pointer in basketball as good to look at now as before? It used to be kind of a big deal, whereas now Well, like, listen, that's just it is unbelievable skill execution. I remember watching The Last Dance, and there was a game where Jordan made a point, or he knew that they were going to like press him high when he tried to attack the basket. So he just sat back and he hit threes all night, and it was an amazing thing to watch. I don't know, like maybe it's more commonplace. It's still an unbelievable skill though.
I think it's become routine. It like for the likes of us, it's an unbelievable skill, but it's become routine. Throwing at the distance required based on the S&C that the players are doing these days, I don't think they have to push as hard. I think it's the same with hurling. You know, is scoring a point from your own 65 that big of a deal anymore? Whereas
no,
when we were young, was that not seen as monstrous thing to do? Even scoring 65s was a big deal. Whereas now it's a matter of course. And I think it's probably just gone that way in basketball. It's kind of taken some of the, I don't know, like, isn't the best action surely when teams are like, sort of like someone is basically running through and doing a slam dunk or going into traffic, doing something intricate?
Yeah. It's hard, like, it's hard bet a slam dunk. It's hard bet a team bearing through on goal, looking for the net as well. There's a good comment in there from Richard Hogan. Don't know if this will ever happen. Maybe, who knows? There's a project. Saint and Verney become referees. Will be like that Sky Sports piece where Neville, Cara and Roy all tried refereeing. That was actually brilliant, yeah, to be fair. And 𝘵𝘃74 just says, the problem with refs during the championship is they watch out for players highlighted in the Sunday game, and that can be pundits picking out players from other counties. That's probably, I'd say that has happened through the years, all right, definitely.
I was reffing a match last week.
Oh, go away, like an internal game.
Yeah. Well, it was the UCD Fitz against Freshers. So Owen Gilfoyle felt, from James Stevens, felt he could have got a few more frees.
Yeah.
He probably could.
It's that type of a scenario is grand. No one's really going to abuse it. Well, they will give you abuse, but not to the point of it actually being really bad or like that, because they know they're not going to make the squad or the team if they do or say something that they shouldn't. But it's when you're put in the situation where you're managing two clubs that you've no affinity to, and like no one really knows you. They just know that you're the referee that is not giving them calls that they feel they should be getting.
Okay, Glenn had a great win over 𝘱𝘉𝘂 as well, and I suppose we were expecting Glenn to come through this routinely enough, but Emmett Bradley, he had to be the hero at the end of the game. Got a great point there. And I suppose, like, there's talk that it was a soft penalty, whatever of that. O'Malley slotted it away. I mean, we're going to get a pretty tasty Ulster final here. Glen against Scottstown. Like, it is very, very tasty.
Yeah, box office final, realistically, isn't it? Now, Glen were impressive throughout Derry. Have probably been less impressive in their last two games, beaten, like, of the bigger hitters in Ulster. You probably wouldn't say that Carrigan and 𝘱𝘉𝘂𝘂 are. I'm just saying in comparison to Kilcoo and whatever. So they haven't impressed in Ulster really to this point, but they've got the job done. And you'd imagine they're brewing towards a big final performance again, as I said, against the Scottstown team. None of which this current crop have an Ulster medal, and I'm sure I was just listening to an interview with Rory Bergin yesterday. Like, they're absolutely dying for that and will do whatever they can. And maybe Jack McCarron, who was man of the match the last day and the difference in the county final, could be the difference maker in an Ulster final. You'd still have Glen as strong enough favourites though too, because on their day, you'd think it's Glen and Kilmacud are the two best teams in the country. There's a power rankings brewing, I think. I'd say there's a football power rankings brewing. I'd say now is the time, and we might have to. Well, we can probably do whoever's left at this stage, I'd say.
Yeah, we might do one on Thursday. So, Joe, we didn't talk about Alejandro Garnacho's bicycle kick there at the weekend. Wasn't it absolutely unbelievable? Like, the ones I thought of that would rank up there with it were Ronaldo in the Champions League that time. Oh, that was unbelievable, the height he got off the floor. Rivaldo, because this was the time for Barcelona where he chested the ball up at the edge of the 18-yard box, chested up and bicycled it into the bottom corner. That was class. And the other one was Trevor Sinclair in the FA Cup in the 90s. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it was just clean as a whistle. It was class.
I probably would remember it. I used to watch a good bit of soccer back in the day. What about Rooney's against Man City?
Shinned it in for me.
Was it not a shin yesterday as well?
There's a bit of one, yeah. That's why I'd have Ronaldo's and Trevor Sinclair's ahead of it.
What about Marco?
Marco van Basten, yeah. Do our viewers know who Marco van Basten is? Like the younger lads, like the younger viewers.
Most of them do, I'd say. Well, maybe
when I was young, Marco van Basten was the thing, right? And I remember him scoring 4 goals for AC Milan one day and then going out trying to replicate him, doing a fairly good job of it in school at lunchtime the following day.
I honestly thought what you were going to say was, I remember him scoring 4 goals and then going out and playing Junior B that evening. I honestly thought that's where you were going. I genuinely thought that's where you were going. Just on Rivaldo, I don't know. I lost a hell of a lot of respect for Rivaldo when he went down clutching his face in the World Cup when they played Turkey. Like, that was absolutely ridiculous.
The ball was kicked at his shin and he went down holding his face.
Did he get your man sent off? I think he did, didn't
he? Yeah, he did, yeah.
Ridiculous, ridiculous. Was it, what was the Turkish striker? Was it Sukur?
No.
Was there a Sukur? There was a David Sukur.
No, David Sukur was Croatia.
Was there not? I have a feeling there was a second name of a similar pronunciation and spelling that played for Turkey.
There's a Hakan Sukur, yeah.
Hakan Sukur, that's the one. Yeah. That's the one.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent.
Turlock Hendry says Bale versus Liverpool in the Champions League final. That was brilliant. 1988 genius, yeah. Marco van Basten was unbelievable. Was it an ankle injury that kind of did him in around age? I think he was 29 when it first started troubling him, or when he had to retire. But either way, it was ridiculously early. That Holland jersey in the 1980s, late 80s, absolutely class. But actually who had the best jersey of the late 80s, early 90s? Ours was class, especially the one with the bit of netting there. Do you know that one?
Yeah,
I bought it with my communion money. You probably thought I still had it, but no, I spent it on that.
It's there somewhere.
The Denmark jersey back then. Oh my God, it was absolutely class.
Who were they? Who was their shirt maker actually?
Hummel,
that's the one. That's the one.
There was a lad called 𝘱𝗶𝗄𝘀𝘀. He was unbelievable.
I would have been a big fan of the Columbia jersey back in the day now as well.
Yeah. What was your favorite player? Carlos Valderrama, surely.
Valderrama with the hair. He's my idol, like, as regards hair goals.
We can see that. Okay, I'm just going to bring up that Denmark jersey there. It was slick. I don't even know if that's an official one, but anyway, it was.
I don't think they didn't wear those colours, Shane. Sure, it would have been red and white, would it not? No,
it was red and white. What came up on the screen?
That was like that was maroon. That was more of like a Galway jersey that came up. Looked like a Galway United jersey, actually.
Hold on, I'm going to see if I can find a better one, because that picture I'm not satisfied with that. But that was red. I don't know how it came up on your screen, but hold on. Give me a second here.
Couple of good comments in there. Ronnie Whelan, 88 versus Russia. That was a peach. And Sully 180 says the Mexico jersey. Richard Hogan, Tony Aboa has some goals. Asher, that Monday night, that goal he got against Liverpool was 95. That's the one. Yeah. No, I remember that one. The Laudrups.
Yeah. Your Laudrups, your prevail-𝘂𝘀𝘀, all these kind of players.
Peter Schmeichels, your...
Yeah, no, to be fair, they had some class jerseys over the years. Who was your favourite player, actually, growing up? Soccer player?
Do you know who I loved for his brief spell? I very obscure players. I love Juninho with Middlesbrough.
Oh, yeah.
In the day. Juninho, they drew 3-3 with Liverpool first day of the season. Mid-90s, maybe. Ravanelli was playing for Middlesbrough as well. Remember, it was one of the sickest things I ever saw. Remember, was it Chelsea that signed Pierluigi Casiraghi and he broke his leg the first day of the season?
Made child of it, yeah.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
Ronnie Whelan, yeah, 88, Mexico jersey. Mexico 2006 jersey was class. It had a big, what did I call it again? A chevron going across here. It was class, a white chevron.
That's more of a... Chevrons are usually used in racing colours now. You wouldn't usually see them in a jersey.
Well, that's what's down the side of the Denmark jersey as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find that Mexico 2006 jersey. Alan Shearer was
peachy ones. I love the France 98 jersey. I think I have it somewhere still at home even. And I like the Ireland one that had opal on the front of it too. I remember buying that. Remember buying a hooky version of that in a shop in Burr one time.
You were too mean to buy the real one. So there's the Mexico 2006 jersey. I always looked at that and thought, why with the Ireland jersey can't we do something as slick as that? And it actually looked better even when, in a match.
I'm not mad about that.
You're not mad about it?
No, it's all right.
To be honest, it doesn't look quite as good in that picture, but you'll just trust me on this one, you will. Okay, so what else do we have to talk about? 𝘧𝘶𝘢𝘭𝘪𝘧𝘺. They're going to build a wall. They're going to build a wall.
We're going to build a wall.
Talk about a privacy wall. John Fogarty had this story they're looking to raise the guts of 55 grand to put a perimeter around their training pitch to keep away those prying eyes. And this is coming from the same man who had someone up in a tree looking down at the Kerry training session before the 2014 All-Ireland. He's now going to put up a wall.
Yeah, it's a mad one, isn't it? A privacy fence. I've never heard the like of this now, to be honest with you.
Well, it happens in professional sports all the time.
Yeah, but like, listen, it's kind of, from what I can gather, a lot of things that are going to happen in Donegal over the next while are not going to be reported locally. Just because they have the Messiah back and they will not do anything at all to put their nose there. They basically have a meal ticket for the next God knows how long. They're one of the biggest names in football, and they're not going to do anything to put his nose out of joint with them in any way at all. It's a mad one, but it's a great story. Like it's crazy, like, but it's great. Like, it's manna from heaven for people like me and you anyway. Like, building a fence around and going raising funds to do so or whatever. And
some counties don't need it. Like, wasn't it 10 or 12 years ago that Eamon Fitzmaurice decided that the Kerry training sessions wouldn't be open anymore for the first time? But it's grand there. All you have to do is lock the gate and no one can get in. He doesn't have to build a wall in Fitzgerald Stadium. Whereas obviously there's a bit more of an issue for Donegal by the sounds of it. So other teams already have a wall up and he doesn't. So maybe he's doing this just for parity.
Just even on the players' charter as well. The innocence is gone, isn't it? The innocence is gone. Like, you can't just... It's kind of nearly difficult to land into something now. Like, I remember landing into watch a Kilkenny session years ago. I remember landing into watch Tip before 2011, I think. Like, it was great. Maybe it was in very innocent times or whatever, but like, are you really going to pick up that much when you go in? You might say someone is flying or whatever, but geez, wasn't it great just to be able to land into a training or land in somewhere and just be able to watch it? Like, I don't know. It's probably not. Things aren't really that innocent anymore. Everything is kind of very regimental, and it's always been serious, but it's probably particularly serious now.
Yeah, Mickey Hart taking a leaf out of the Bielsa book for next season. Do you remember who Marcelo Bielsa got caught doing it against? What other big name manager he got caught doing it against?
I don't. I have his book here behind me, actually, but I can't remember.
It was Frank Lampard when he was over the Derby team a couple of years ago. And then that led to Marcelo Bielsa doing a press conference where he basically explained all the ins and outs of...
Yes, I actually do remember it now. But Jizzy, like, history would show that he mightn't have been looking at the best manager or the best squad at the time anyway.
He was probably just figuring out how to expose Lampard. And who's Bielsa now managing?
Is it someone back in his native land?
Well, it's someone down in South America, yeah.
Boca Juniors?
It's Uruguay. So he's Argentinian himself, but he's managing Uruguay.
Sorry, I had a feeling that he was... maybe he was linked to someone. Surprised he's not been back in the Premier League since, to be honest with you. And I don't think Leeds should have got rid of him at the time when they did either.
And certainly not for that virtue signaller, Jesse March, who ended up being an absolute disaster full of bluster. The Munster semi-finals over the weekend then. Clonmel Commercials 10 points, Dingle 13. I have to say, from a Tipperary point of view, I'm quite disappointed that Clonmel didn't get a little bit more out of themselves in that game. But you have to credit Dingle. And to be fair, like, there's no doubt that they deserve to win this game. And they'll meet Castlehaven in the final, who saw off Rathgormack. And I think Rathgormack got a goal very, very early in the game. And it was 1-2 to a point that they were ahead there. But Brian Hurley, the two Hurleys, actually, they scored 1-11 between them, and they came out on top.
Did you see the goal, Shano? The goal, the Castlehaven goal was, like, I think Streamsport had it up as an amazing goal. It definitely wasn't an amazing goal anyway. I think the keeper was sure it was going wide and had his hands out. Had his hands been even wider, he probably nearly would have touched it. But it was a very nonchalant shot, wasn't it? He definitely didn't shape like he was looking to shoot for a goal. That is not how you shoot for a goal. Usually would, particularly with the way he was kicking it. He kicked it off the inside of his boot and it just kind of nestled into the corner. But yeah, by all accounts, the two Hurleys were on fire and have been. Like Michael Hurley, I wonder would he play football with Galway in 2024? And like on his day, like one of the best forwards that Cork have, brilliant player, and he's playing some brilliant stuff for Castlehaven at the minute, as is his brother Brian.
And Dylan Gainey, he was on fire for Dingle, by the way. He scored 5 points. And then A number of other players pitched in with one each. I wonder would Mark O'Connor come back for the Munster final, or would his club allow him to from the AFL? It isn't until March that their season begins. So is there any possibility where they'd look at it and think, right, to keep this lad sweet, let's let him go back, play this match, stay at home for Christmas, and out you come again then? Or are we being a bit too doughy-eyed about the situation?
Hard to know, isn't it? They've probably been lenient enough as it is. And there's always that, like, at the end of the day, you can say whatever you want, like, Mark O'Connor is an investment for them. Like, they've invested in him. And it's probably a very foolish thing to do with your investment from a cold, hard business point of view. But from a personal thing, and, like, I don't know, wouldn't you have way more affinity to the club if they gave you that bit of leeway to play in what Dingan's biggest game ever? Fair to say? Biggest game in their history.
Then if they win that, is he going to be looking to say, hey, look, I'll play the semi-final anyway?
I think he'd be happy enough if he got back for a Munster final and was able to play.
Come on, like, put yourself in his shoes. Let's say they won that Munster final and you're like, geez, this is class. Sure, look, I'm heading to Australia, lads. You want to stay on and play that next game.
I don't think it's a bad problem to have from his point of view, or even from the club's point of view, but I'd say it will be a one-match deal. I would say that they'd say it's getting too close to whatever, we need you for pre-season or whatever, because he's obviously he's an important member of both squads.
Hey, Katie Taylor, that victory at the weekend, it was absolutely brilliant to see her win it. Where do you rank her in the greatest Irish sports athletes of all time? And, like, even just shortlist, who comes to mind?
Greatest Irish sports athletes of all time, in terms of worldwide achievements: Pádraig Harrington, Brian O'Driscoll, Sonia O'Sullivan, Katie Taylor. I think she's right in the conversation, isn't she? I think she's right in the conversation.
She has to be up there. Like,
I think she needed that the other night, though. As mad as that is to say, it's 11 years on from the Olympics. What really cements someone's legacy when they're beaten, and like, she was the underdog? That was the first time she'd ever been. I'd hazard a guess and say it was one of the first times in her 213 fights, amateur and pro, that she's ever been an underdog going into a fight. One of the first times.
The Belgian one, what was her name? Pursoon or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, yes. And obviously, Amanda Serrano as well. But she was underdog going into a fight, and it was kind of like, it was a real GA interview after almost. I can't believe so many people wrote me off or lost.
We knew coming down here.
Yeah. But like, humans have very basic needs and requirements. And like, if I wrote you off and said, you can't do this or you won't do this, that would just give you another 5 or 10%. And it clearly gave her another 5 or 10%. I think she's brilliant to watch as well, because she just stands there and slugs a lot of the time. And it's brilliant to watch. Like, there's been some of her fights where they're just slugging there in the middle of the ring for like a good minute or minute and a half within a round. And she obviously learned a hell of a lot from the first fight. I don't have the zone or anything like that, but I just watched back highlights of it yesterday. But it was very polished in comparison to the first fight, where she said she just didn't feel like herself at all. And she kind of boxed like that, to be fair. But I'd have her right up there. She's probably top 3. Like, Paul O'Donovan would be another good one as well. Yeah, like, as regards world achievements, as Richard Morgan says there. I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but the Indo did a Tainted Gold podcast around the 25th anniversary of our gold medals, and it's a brilliant listen.
All praise, I suppose.
Not much, not too much praise. Very little.
Okay, so you'd have to put Roy Keane up there, and by dint of his goal scoring record, you have to put Robbie Keane up there. Do you count Rory McIlroy?
Shane, come on now. Would you have Robbie Keane in the top 3 or 4? Like, genuinely?
No, I'd have him in the conversation, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a rugby player? Like, overall, our rugby teams have underwhelmed. No matter what rugby player you're going to name, they've done well in terms of, like, we've been the best team in the world the year before a World Cup, but we've dirtied the togs every time we've gone into a World Cup. So I'm not sure how much, and like, even in terms of the Lions, how many times have the Irish players been absolutely crucial to a Lions win versus how many times have they been dropped and the team has gone on to do really well because of it?
Yeah, that last chapter of O'Driscoll's career kind of it puts a little bit of blight on his career, but I still think like for the period of his career, I'd say he was one of, if not the best players in the world.
Yeah, he was magic to watch. He was
over a course of a decade, I'd say.
But can we put him down, considering it's, you know, like an 8-team competition in international rugby? Can we really put them down as Ireland's greatest sports person if they've never delivered on the international stage at the World Cup?
Yeah, that's why I'd have Harrington unbelievably high.
Yeah, Ronnie Delaney, who doesn't have an E at the end of Delaney, I don't believe.
No, it's spelt kind of funny, yeah.
Yeah, Stephen Roach, Roy Keane. Who else we would be looking at? Would you be putting any GAA player in there?
In time, David Clifford could come into the conversation.
Yeah, interesting.
Henry Shefflin is probably in the conversation as well. Am I right in saying Henry Shefflin is Henry Shefflin the last GAA player to win the RTE Sports Personality of the Year?
He actually said in his autobiography that was like, he really pointed that out. It's been a very like big deal for him to win that. That was
yeah. It's particularly like because you're basically pitting him against, you know, professional sports people and saying, no, you were the best this year. Brilliant amateur career, obviously capped by the Olympics, but like professional career, no. Like
you're writing off the Olympics.
I'm not writing off the Olympics, but as regards, if you're talking about,
sorry, now did you put Sonia O'Sullivan in the list here, and you're going to rule him out on the basis of Olympics?
That was one Olympics. You're looking at, yeah, Ronnie Delaney should be in the conversation, definitely.
Yeah, on the basis of an Olympic goal. But Michael Crute is no bueno for you.
I love Michael Crute, and I love the jump at the end when he won. But Jesus, come on, it's not that's you're talking about. Name me another achievement outside of that Olympics.
Well, okay. Do you know a load of what Ronnie Delaney did outside of the Olympics?
No, but I haven't really been talking about Ronnie Delaney much.
Yeah, well, look, you agreed he was up near the top when Trounsfield.
Olympic silver medalist, obviously multiple European champion, world champion. You know.
Okay, so where is McGregor going?
Oh.
Two-way world champion.
Oh God! If you get into his activity over the last couple of days,
Gary Toohey said Robbie Keane is barely top 10. He's not in the conversation. Katie, Paul O'Donovan, and Harrington have done it regularly on the world stage, followed by Rog, Brian O'Driscoll, and Sexton. Now, obviously, I'm kind of just winding up people a little bit on the rugby. They have done unbelievably well in their careers and winning European titles and all that at club. Ronnie Delaney blessed himself. Next question says 𝘂𝘂𝘂, probably referring to McGregor there, who, like, when did he last win a fight of note? Was it about 2016?
𝘬𝑗 Cerrone in January of 2020.
Cerrone was absolutely useless. A couple of shoulders into the face early on and he was done. That was a joke fight.
𝘬𝑗 Cerrone, who has, I think, the most amount of knockout victories in UFC history and the most amount of head kick knockout victories in UFC history as well.
As in, he's been knocked out.
I'm not trying to justify McGregor. I'm just saying that, like, you're totally downplaying what is a future Hall of Famer in the UFC in 𝘬𝑗.
He was basically a tomato can at that stage. He was a knockover job at that stage.
Yeah, I tell you something. You call him out there, he'll come and knock you over fairly quickly.
But like, you know, I would say that the last fight of note where McGregor has beaten somebody who's somewhere near the top of their game is probably the first Nate Diaz fight, which was a questionable decision. And that was what, 2015?
Eddie Alvarez, when he won the lightweight title, I'd say. He sparked him out in the second round. I think that was after the second Diaz fight.
Oh, you might be right. Let me just double check when that fight was.
I'm definitely right.
That was November 2016. Yeah, fair enough. But I would say I don't count the Cerrone fight because I thought it was just a joke and Cerrone was done at that stage.
Okay. Give me your top three here really quickly. Greatest Irish sports people of all time.
Calnan,
Jimmy Doyle, Owen Kelly.
yeah. Okay, 𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂, Robbie Keane's goal scoring record will not be beaten in our lifetime. He smashed Stapleton's record too. Was Stapleton had something like 21 at the time, Frank Stapleton?
1920, I think, yeah. Because I remember looking back at a clip recently where Liam Brady kind of scoffed at Robbie Keane after he scored his first couple of goals, where he said he'd love to break the record. And sure, what did he end up on? To go to 70? I think it's 68 in my head. I was 68 in my head.
Something like that.
Could be wrong. But like on an international stage, like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have him in the top 5, maybe in the top 10.
I'd go with. By the way, do you include Barry McGuigan in this? And Shane Lowry, your own local there.
Do we include McIlroy? Sorry.
Well, he wasn't going to include himself on the Irish Olympics team.
Don't know. He's on the island of Ireland, obviously.
Well, then we're putting George Best in here.
We'll be here till next Thursday.
Okay, you name your 3.
In no particular order, probably Harrington, Katie Taylor, Paul O'Donovan.
And by the way, should Zach Toohey get a bit of a mention here, considering what he's done?
Savage, yeah. I wouldn't watch enough AFL to probably, if I did watch a bit more, I'd probably have him higher up in the list. But as regards the real high end of the list, I think you're talking about people. Again, AFL is played in one country, if you get me. Whereas Harrington has got 3 golf majors where he's competing against the best in the world. Katie Taylor is competing against the best in the world. And my third person is Paul O'Donovan, who again has won against the best in the world.
Okay, I suppose I'll go Michelle Smith, Conor McGregor, and is there anyone else controversial I can go?
Throw that out for the crack. Sean Kelly.
Yeah. SSRI says Johnny Giles, Sean Kelly, the cyclist, maybe. Paul McGrath in the conversation says Richard Hogan. It's really, it's almost impossible to guess here.
When you go through it, like Jesus, we've produced some, like, even I'm thinking about like who's the greatest Irish soccer player of all time, and you have like Paul McGrath, the 2 Keens, they're good conversations to have. Isn't it great that we've produced that level of people over the time. Andrew 𝘱𝘳𝘁𝘗 says Watford Crystal, the horse obviously that won a gold medal and was subsequently rescinded.
Eddie Jordan, he's another one up there. Fergus Butler says Eddie Irvine. If we're going to include McIlroy and Barry McGuigan and so on and so forth, it's a tough one. Okay, so I'm going to go with Roy Keane, Katie Taylor, and Padraig Harrington.
Good lists all the same, yeah. Good lists all the same. Yeah. As Keane was one of the best players in the world during that spell. And do you know what's brilliant about Keane is how, and he'll admit this himself, he was he was limited enough, but by God, he made the highlight reel you could watch back of Keane's best bits or whatever. And I think what's underestimated as well is the man was able to score goals, particularly in the early stage of his career. He just changed. It was a different role maybe as his career went on.
How have you not mentioned Ken Doherty, says Richard Hogan?
Well, Ken, obviously world champion. We probably could throw Alex Higgins into the mix as well. Alex was a 2-time world champion, I think, late 70s and 1982, I think. At a time, for a good spell, Padraig Harrington was one of, if not the best golfers in the world. Would you say that about Ken from the 97 to 98 spell? But Harrington would have had much greater longevity, I would have said, throughout his career. He was at the top for a lot longer, as was Keane, as was Paul O'Donovan, as was Katie Taylor.
Yeah, okay. Well, keep your comments coming in. Let us know what you think. The Ulster Intermediate Football semi-finals, Glenollan, they lost by a point to Ballyhaise, 113-114. Like you mentioned earlier, controversial umpire decision there. St. Patrick's beat Leitrim, that was 17 points to 6. The junior final saw Arva 13 points, Black Hill 6. The Munster Intermediate finals, so Rowan Moore, their good run came up short against Mungret St. Paul's, 1-9 to 2 points. And then this is arguably the result of the weekend. Kilnamartyr from Cork beat Milltown Castlemaine 13 points to 11. You're looking at the 25th best team in Cork beating the 9th best team in Kerry. That's an incredible performance from Kilnamartyr and their manager, John Evans of Kerry.
Yeah, we obviously would have known Milltown Castlemaine inside out, but you still wouldn't have been expected this result. No. Definitely not. Obviously, there's probably difficulties with Milltown and the proximity of the game to winning a county final and the celebrations that came with it, but you still, Milltown Castlemaine would have been favourites for the All-Ireland.
And blame your county board for that. It's the first time since 2013 that a Kerry team won't win this title.
Wow. Jeannie Mac, okay. Jesus, right, okay. Fair play to John Evans. We must get him on again soon. He's after working the Oracle there big time.
The other semi-finals, this is in the junior, of course. Kilmurray 4-16, Fianna 𝘰𝘮𝘢𝘕 2 points, so that was pretty one-sided. Listowel Emmets 5-17, Killimer 2-12 there. It was put back by 15 minutes because there was a car breakdown on the ferry from Tarbert. So that's, of the reasons a game being put back, that's up there. Actually,
yeah,
does it
right
beat the bales of hay being all over the M7 that time a few years ago? Waterford, Kilkenny. I got held up in that. I was coming from Cork. Oh my God, it took me 4 hours.
Waterford, Kilkenny, or was it not Limerick and Waterford?
Limerick,
Waterford. I just, all I remember from that is that picture shared on social media after, who was the perpetrator, and that picture, big smiley head of Brian Cody, had been put out on social media.
That was the one. The Connacht Intermediate final, Castlereagh, St. Kevin's 2-4, Monavea Abbey 8 points. So unfortunately, we won't hear any more good interviews with the Monavea manager for the rest of the year. Now we've got through that final thing that we were never prepared for, and true to form, we're not once more. Who is the GOAT of the week?
GOAT of the week. In hurling terms, it's Conor Heary for me. Maybe subtle and understated, but unbelievably effective. And in football, it is Scottstown's Kieran Hughes, who there's literally no end to him.
Okay, I would give it's hard to go against Conor Heary, being honest, and it's rare we pick the same lad, but I think he was so good there, we'd nearly have to give it to him. And on the football side of things, we should have mentioned, by the way, that Seanie O'Donnell was class for Trillick. Really, really good performance there. I suppose just Dylan Gainey getting 5 points in the Munster semi-final against Clonmel Commercials. You can't ignore that.
Yeah, well, Conor Heary must start for Kilkenny next year, if me and you have both agreed that he's GOAT of the week.
Yeah. The Shelminator says, great show, bit of Offaly training now equals 6 cans of Guinness. Lovely the grind. It was an electric car too, says Richard Hogan. Okay, that's it for the show this week. If you want to get the audio podcast, go to patreon.com/OurGame. Michael, we've it all said, have we?
All done, Shane. I'll take her handy.
Good luck.